Now live. Okay.
We're live?
Yep, we're live.
Okay, then.
Doing it live.
All right, so how about we do people get to see the behind the scenes. I'll do the show intro. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the 26th episode of S.Link FM. I'm your host, Levito. With me today is CJ Keats.
Hello.
ScraftyDevil.
Hey, guys.
Inorigo.
Good day.
And we got a new voice here. We've got Smedwicks with us.
Howdy.
Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, good. All right.
I also call him Smeed.
Smeedle?
Smed.
Smeed.
Don't worry.
His real name is Smedpie.
Yeah, Smedpie. There we go.
I'm going to have to exile myself.
Anyways, so what we're talking about today, this is a Casual Saturdays, so it's our off-topic series, so we're not talking about Persona really. Well, we probably will a little bit, because there's a reason I think a lot of us were drawn to this title we're about to discuss. But I should issue a very, very astute and clear spoiler warning. This is a spoiler warning. If you have never played Dangan Ronpa Trigger Happy Havoc and plan to play it, this is your official spoiler warning. If you comment on the blog and complain that you saw a spoiler, I'll Chuck Liddell you. But anyways, so don't complain about spoilers. This is your official spoiler warning. Go play the game and then listen after. Okay, we're good? All right. So today we're talking about Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. Woo! Yay!
Only the first game.
Only the first.
Yeah, only the first game.
Yeah, we're not talking about the second one. I don't know anything about 2.
So about that second game.
So you're telling me Bruce Willis was dead the whole time?
And Rosebud was his sled.
So you're saying that the final element is love?
Yeah, I am.
I would think it would be despair.
It could be hope.
It could be that. All right,
Canon's tricky.
So we're going to start off by talking about how did we get into, or how did we find out about this franchise? And someone's echoing. Okay, it's Ron. All right, so we're doing it live.
Always me. Sorry.
So we're going to discuss, the first thing we're going to talk about is where we first heard about Danganronpa. So who wants to go first? How about you, Keats?
Sure. I first heard of the game when they announced a Vita spin-off game, which is kind of the third game, but it's not. And it's a horror third-person shooter. And everyone was just going off their heads complaining about it. So I said, okay, what are the other games like? And here we are today. I was very close to playing the PSP fan translation, but then they announced the official one, so I waited.
Okay, so how about you, Scrafty?
Actually, so when the Vita version of the first game was announced for localization this past summer, I have people in PersonaGAF were talking about it, and I was like, oh, I've never heard of this before. So I Googled it, and I'm so surprised I didn't get spoiled on it, but I Googled it, and I looked up what it was, and I was like, oh, this seems like a really cool type game. So then I just went on a complete blackout, didn't learn anything about it until I played the game when it came out in February. So not a very exciting story, but
it's pretty straightforward. What about you, Inorigo?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know I definitely heard about it in passing, like a while ago. And I remember, like Keats said, when they first announced the Vita remasters, it was at that point. It was like at that point, this was Persona 4 Golden had already been out over here for a while, and VLR had been out for a while and stuff. And I remember that when they announced it, the Vita remakes that day, I thought to myself, Axis will probably get that and bring that over here, because I'd already heard that it was supposed to be really good. Obviously, Nisa ended up getting it, but before that, I don't know. I guess just having seen it around, I think some people were into some people I knew had been into the LP, so I'd seen it mentioned on Twitter and stuff a couple of times. I had heard it was supposed to be very, very Japanese, and it was the type of thing where if somebody were to license it, it'd be very difficult to translate. So obviously Nisa has quite the achievement on their hands, because I think it's been localized very well. It feels very local. But yeah, so yeah, I guess I just heard about it in passing, just kind of around. Certainly not when it first came out, though, because it first came out on PSP in 2009 or 10 or something. So I probably heard about it in 2012, probably. Yeah.
Fair enough. So it sounds like most of us weren't that familiar with it. I heard about it because I was on Something Awful, and I saw that Tumblr exploded because the Let's Play everyone was reading, they weren't able to read it anymore because Something Awful put up their paywall where you can't view their form. You couldn't view their form.
Oh, right. Yeah, you have to pay $5. I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone was freaking out. And I didn't really put any more thoughts in it besides that. It's just like, okay, it's something that made Tumblr mad. What's new? But that was about it. And yeah, I think it's just in our community on PersonaGAF. I'm like, oh yeah, there's this game coming up for Vita that we should play, and it's kind of has some Persona influence to a degree. And I'm like, oh sure, why not? And I ended up getting a review copy for Rely. I write for RelyOnHorror.com, and I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed that game. But so yeah, it seems like we were all fairly unfamiliar with it.
Yeah.
Actually, wait. What am I thinking? I'm sorry, Smed. I skipped over you.
Don't worry. Everyone forgets.
No, go for it. What about you, Smed?
To be honest, I didn't even know this game was getting localized. I asked in the PersonaGAF IRC when I was finishing up my own review, and I was like, when this game get announced for localization? Someone was like, July. And I'm like, it did? Because I heard about it in like, I want to say August from the YouTube account Red Spray. They're some of the guys who are from Something Awful, and I heard about that from that, and that there was a Let's Play, and I'm like, it was during summer vacation, so I'm like, okay, like I have all these afternoons where I'm doing literally nothing, so it's like I'll just read this. And so my first experience wasn't even playing the game. My first experience was reading the whole game, basically, which I feel like it feels really bizarre, sort of like now going through the game for real, sort of knowing everything.
Oh yeah, at least you never had it spoiled for you in a sense, right?
Oh, I had the second one spoiled for me, to be fair, so I'm not too.
Oh no!
Well, yeah, that's something I should just put out there for anyone listening. Even if you have played the first game but you don't want to see spoilers for the second one, don't look up anything on the franchise.
Really, just because if you look up a video for the first one, you'll get spoilers for the second one. Something I usually do when I complete a game, if it interests me enough, I just look at stuff online, look who made it, look at character profiles, look at designs, whatever, and
interviews.
I went to a character profile. I'm like, oh, that person's back in 2. Huh. Oh well.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, then yeah. Assuming you're talking about Dangan Ronpa, then yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that sucks, but yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything more. I'm just gonna say, don't worry.
Fair enough. Oh, I'm not worried. It's going to happen. But so how did you guys want to approach this? Did you want to go chapter by chapter, or what did you want to do?
The idea that I had, because it seems like the thing that this probably has in common mostly with Persona is obviously the central mystery is there and very prominent and much better than in any Persona. I would definitely say the central mystery is fantastic, but it's obviously like a really character-focused story. And I've noticed in interacting with you guys and like a spoiler thread on GAF the past week or whatever, everybody seems to have a pretty diverse top 3, despite the fact there's like probably 2 or 3 characters out of the cast of 15 that I think everybody universally thinks is just fantastic. But I think if we just went around and everybody gave their top 3. I mean, we could see where we stand. I don't know.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, that sounds
good. Wants to go with their top 3 characters right now. Go for it. It's a shoot take. All right, Keith, you're up.
Okay. Jesus, 3. My favorite was probably Toko.
Oh, all right.
Okay, I like that.
I mean, both Tokos.
Both her and Genocide Jill.
Absolutely. Oh, so that was great. And then definitely Junko, the real Junko.
Yeah,
Junko.
Definitely.
I feel we're going to hear her name a lot because, Jesus, she comes out of nowhere. And I guess Kyoko for number 3.
Good stuff. Mm-hmm. What about you, Scrafty? You spoke up and I cut you off there.
Yeah, no, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. But my favorite character in the game was actually Mondo Owada.
No, that's a good choice.
Yeah,
what's wrong with that?
Mondo's a great character.
I've gone on other forums now, even on GAF, people are hating on me for choosing that because people say like he's an a-hole or he's a dirtbag or he's like just a violent criminal. But
he definitely is.
I mean, he is, but at the same time, he sort of isn't. If you sort of look at things, like I've been going through it again, and I'm just sort of like he means well, but he obviously comes off kind of harshly.
Characters can be awful people and still be great characters.
Oh
but,
yeah,
at the end of it, he caved someone's fucking skull in with a barbell. He's a big asshole.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit.
Anyways.
But like, I don't know. I feel like he's like the most sympathetic killer in the game, just because like, what he did was awful. Yeah, for sure. Like he's a scumbag for killing someone, of course. But I kind of got the impression that like it's the only murder in the game that isn't premeditated. Like it's not like he planned to murder Chihiro the entire time or whatever. He just had a small like lapse of control and then like killed him. So it's like it's obviously a horrible thing. I need you could say I would have no problem with you saying he's a bad person for doing that, but I just think he's a really interesting character and what like, motivated him and how if you do like his social links or whatever they were supposed to be called.
Report cards.
Yeah, report cards. And you learn that like he's consciously trying to better himself. He knows he's a kind of a bad person, a scumbag, but he's trying to become a better person. But he feels like he's trapped into the life he's in because of the promises he's made to people. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of hard to balance like keeping your promises to people and growing as a person at the same time when you're in the position he's in. So I don't know. I just felt really bad for him, and I liked watching him grow as a character. I was kind of disappointed that they ended his arc when they did, but I thought for what he was, I really liked him. And second favorite, I'd probably have to say Hina, just because she's sweet and adorable and makes me smile. And third, I'd probably say Taka, because Taka is amazing. I just like for anyone who's familiar with Salty Bets, the voice actor for Taka is the same guy who does the parody songs for the jukebox.
Oh, really?
So yeah, hearing that voice coming out of him was kind of made me happy and made me smile. And,
Sean Shiplock.
Yeah, Sean Shiplock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I felt like they underutilized him. I felt like he died at a really awkward point in his character arc. I really wish they did more with him, but for the time he was in the game, I really enjoyed him. I thought he was a great character.
Oh, the second murder, or the second execution, I should say. Geez, that was rough to actually go through.
Oh,
yeah, no, friggin' like the first one kind of set the tone really well. Like, being beaten to death by baseballs is no picnic, but being crushed into paste by G-Force and then eaten, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, and I'm even just talking about Ishimaru's reaction to that. It was just like, wow, that is rough.
Yeah. I mean, like Celestia says in the game, when you're wound that tight and you snap hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Yeah.
So, Ron.
Yeah, my top three would definitely have to be, definitely, oh my god, that's my dog in the background. We're doing this live, y'all. No, my top three would definitely have to be Kyoko, Byakuya, and who was the last one that I was going to say? Because I love everybody so much, so it's hard for me to come with a top three. Junko as the villain.
The actual Junko.
The actual real Junko. I'm mentioning her now, so I guess I'll just say I really liked her because I felt like there was no, when she, in the final trial, when you finally see her face, like just being revealed, just that whole reveal, I was just repulsed on insight, knowing that it was actually her this whole time, and she was so unfeeling because she had no real reason for doing any of this. Because there's a couple points in the game where they ask her and they ask Monokuma, and they always say, "I want you to experience despair." But that's really not really a real reason. I mean, I think it occurred to me maybe halfway through the game that, Alfred's famous line from The Dark Knight, "Some men just want to watch the world burn." That's Junko. She's just an incredibly vile, cruel villain with no real reason or no real good reason to make these people go through any of this. So I just think to me, she's probably one of the best villains in a game in quite a long time. I cannot think of anyone specifically. I can't think of anyone specifically that I think really compares to her. She's not. It's because it's her motivations. It's something about her motivations, or rather her lack of any real proper motivations, that make her so scary and so effective. There's no sort of cheesy comic bookiness to her, which I know was kind of ironic to say when I'm using the Joker as a reference point. But I just thought she was a great villain. Kyoko, I really loved because I felt like her relationship with Makoto throughout the game, I felt like that whole thing was about trust, and Makoto trusting her and the player trusting her, and obviously they test you with that in Chapter 5 when they try to see if you're going to sell her out or if you don't, and I failed the test miserably. But I just love seeing that played out. I think that also is another thing. We don't really get that in games. The whole time I was expecting them to turn that into this sort of like a cheesy romance, and they never really do. They have fun with the notion of it. Like there's after one of Kyoko's long stretches of not really being there with the group for an investigation, she comes back and Makoto's like, "Oh, I was worried about you," and she has a line. She says something like, "Oh, you're so high maintenance." Like they play with the notion that that's going to happen, but it never happens. It's platonic the whole way through, and it really is just about these two people. Do you trust me? How much should I trust you? And the back and forth between that. And Byakuya I like just because I thought he was just, during trials, he was just such a great foil for Kyoko.
Yeah, Byakuya is a great character, I think. And he, sorry to sort of interrupt real quick, but his English voice actor was, Feep hit it out of the park, quite frankly.
Feep did a really great job with him. I think Feep is probably, when Feep clicks in that game, I think he clicks really hard. There's a moment in that Chapter 4 trial where he just is, and the game kind of tries to make you think for a second that, oh, it's really Byakuya. He's really the actual guy, and he's being cornered. And he's really not. He's just reacting to kind of like losing hard in the face of Kyoko. Yeah. But it was in that moment when I was in my mind, I just said, Feep is in it. This is the performance. He's in it. He's really selling it. But I just thought he was great. Just the back and forth between him and Kyoko. I thought he really made the trials lively. He really got into it. And I know everybody says, he's such a jerk, but I think that's part of it. That's part of who he is. That's part of who he is as a character. It's a little bit like Junko. Junko is just so hateable, and Feep in it to a lesser extent. Byakuya is also just so hateable. He never wants to connect with the group. He doesn't even want to be with them or associate with them, and he only helps Makoto just so that the trial will go ahead and advance, and we can just get through this and get to the actual interesting action part. I mean, in his own way, he's kind of vile. Just if you reflect on Chapter 2.
I think Chapter 2 really shows that well because of the fact that he sees Mondo not having killed Chihiro, but like Chihiro's dead from Mondo, messes with the crime scene, and then is basically just like, well, yeah, I mean, if you guys would have picked wrong, I just would have said everything. Like that's just sort of like are you for real, man? Like it's like how insane, but it's fantastic.
It's like it's great. It's like, how twisted are you? Like you can only be a matter of degrees away from at that point from Monokuma in terms of just being sort of like vile and inconsiderate and like really, cruel. It's like he wasn't that far off. I think stuff that happens later in the game and the revelations about the bigger events of what's happening and Junko and all that stuff obviously take her just heights above. But at that point, you're like, man, Byakuya, like what team are you even playing for? Like, this is so terrible. So,
I viewed him as he felt like a lot like Edgeworth from Phoenix Wright to me.
I've heard people say that, and I can
sort of see that.
Yeah, I could see a vague similarity. I think they obviously, because for people who played Ace Attorney, what they do with with Edgeworth after the first Ace Attorney is his story becomes sort of more of a thing about growing and redemption and trying to be a better career guy, a better prosecutor. And I don't think Byakuya changes, but not quite to that extent. He's still a total selfish jerk at the end. He's just a little bit less selfish, I think, and maybe a little bit more noble and kind of a little softer, but still pretty rough.
Yeah, I don't know.
Those are my three.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. What about you? What do you, Smed?
See, I'm just thinking about it. Like, I'll just say a lot of my favorite characters come from Dangan Ronpa 2. Of course, I won't mention any of them, but I think both sets of characters are honestly really fantastic. But as for one, like Junko would be my top character, just absolutely great, and just as a villain and the reveal and everything. I mean, we've gone over that, but she's just fantastic, really. Two, I would probably pick Byakuya Togami, just again for reasons we mentioned. He's just a really solid character despite how much of a jerk he is. And I'm probably going to get a little bit of flack for this. I think three I'd probably pick Yasuhiro Hagakure.
Really?
He's just so dopey, but the voice they have for him just fits perfectly. Mm-hmm. It fits like the 21-year-old like loser like guy that's been held back. As soon as I heard the English voice, I was like, this is perfect. Like this is the perfect voice for him. And just how ridiculous
he is the guy.
He's pretty much just Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, like I think there's something funny about him. I can't remember if the joke was made in the localized version, but at one point when I read the LP, it was Asahina says something like, "I don't remember you ever being this dumb," and Hagakure is like, "Oh well, my character hadn't developed yet," and it's just like it's stuff like that that just I absolutely like. He's just a dumb character, but he's great.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So mine were I basically liked the whole cast except for like Humafumi. I don't like Humafumi like at all.
The
weeaboo.
I love
the
him. He's great
otaku
too.
weeaboo guy who always makes
He's
jokes about
really
2D.
great too. I like all the characters really.
The 2D jokes in this game, for a game that lands all of its comedy almost flawlessly, the 2D jokes never work for me.
Yeah, they fell pretty flat. I wasn't a big fan of that character in general.
Wait, they fell flat?
Yes, I get it.
Like 2D.
You're fired.
Oh God.
But
this podcast is over. I'm out of here.
So my number 3. I thought you guys were going to go 3-1, but I'll go 3-1. My number 3 was Junko. I really like Junko. Even at the very short time that you see her, the real one, obviously. She was just a very insidious, terrible person. And when you think back, I feel kind of split talking about this character because it's hard for me to think as Monokuma is just being controlled by Junko, but even though that's exactly what it is. I haven't played the second one, obviously, but there's this. When you look back at what she did to all of the characters throughout the game, it's just like, good Lord, what an awful, awful, terrible person. It really is like there really is no other character I can really equate to other than the Joker. That it's such a funny, humorous character that you really like, but it's like awful, just an awful, vile, terrible person that it all comes together pretty well at the end. I guess the only reason she's actually not higher is I don't really like the explanation as to why she's the way she is.
Right, despair. It's like that's not really a real
it's all
reason.
explained in side material. Sadly, like that's the main thing. Is like you have to go and like search out like all this like fan translated like side material. It's like even I don't like that really. Side
media, yeah. We're starting to see a lot of game narratives sort of fall prey to that. I know like Halo 4 was like that recently, where you have to go and find like read all these books to get the actual villain's motivations and history. And it's like this should be in the game, but most of what's there is pretty great.
I mean, to be fair, not necessarily defending it, but I mean, given the time, like how long it is from when she's revealed to the end of the game, like they don't have a ton of time to explain it in a way.
Yeah, we should say that she says that her and her sister are like born into despair, and they're the ultimate despair, and they're everything bad in the world, so on and so forth. And I really feel like I guess if we're going to use the Joker as an example, in the Dark Knight, the Joker never needs to be, I am chaos embodied. I was born into embodied chaos or
It's funny because they fall prey to that in The Dark Knight Rises, and then in The Dark Knight, remember when Batman tries to get this, Batman doesn't try to get it in the ballroom scene when the Joker first comes to Bruce Wayne's party. He mocks the idea of an origin.
Yeah,
remember he tells a story about his wife and the knife and stuff like that. It's like
he doesn't
give any weight to that.
He does it multiple times, but that's what I felt that they really did not even need to say that at all. Like I get they're trying to fit with the whole ultimate thing, but that was like the one thing that held that character back for not being higher for me. Second was Mondo, mainly because Mondo at first really seemed like a character that was not going to break out of his character trope. Like it's just like, okay, it's a really big, loud, dumb, tough guy. But as the story went on, in chapter 2 when you find Chihiro, I was like, that was like the lowest point in the game. It was like, oh, not Chihiro, you fucks. like, oh, good God. And it's like strung up in the most horrible way. Like that was the point in the game where you really knew that all bets were off, no one was safe. But when he gave when he found out it was him, I was like, what? Because that was the second case where I had no idea who the killer was going to be, and when he revealed to everyone how he did it, and you pieced it all together, it was really horrible in the sense that it was the reasons he did it were just like, well, what a selfish prick, but you do feel sorry from him when you hear his backstory, and like that was the point where it's like, God, they sell home how terrible Junko is, because like you just made everyone's dying because of you, and you're coaxing everyone into it so brilliantly. But oh man,
the worst part is that in the old class photos you see Mondo and Chihiro were like always together. Like in the picture that Makoto was given, not the picture Makoto was given, the picture that Hina's given, like Mondo is like patting Chihiro on the head, and then the first picture he finds is like Mondo giving Leon and Chihiro like a kind of like a group hug type thing.
Yeah.
So you get the impression that they were really close before this entire thing went to crap. So it's like Junko basically took like the one thing that they couldn't replace. Like, and it just kind of hammers home how much of a monster she is and how terrible she's done for like turning these best friends against each other.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty difficult to make a sympathetic. It's pretty difficult to make a sympathetic character that did something so awful, but they nailed it with Mondo, and that's what I really liked about him. It wasn't he superseded his trope, but final character, my absolute favorite character, was cliche, but it was Kyoko. She was a very
my man.
You guys are all like dentists. Jeez, loving all the detectives over here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna paint her in a bunny suit though. But
I'm sorry, dentist, if you hear this.
Tough shit. But yeah, I loved Kyoko because at first, again, I think every single character in this game embodies a an anime trope to a degree, and she was no exception. At first, it's like, okay, it's the cold character that knows exactly what's going on, and the more it went along, she kind of reminded me of, this is going to be a weird comparison, she reminded me of like Obi-Wan Kenobi. She's like always like letting you figure it out for yourself, but she was always kind of like a step ahead of you, even up until the very end. There was never a moment where like, you've surpassed me in your skill, Makoto. You were better than me. I'm not the ultimate detective. There was never that moment, and everything she did it's very deceptive, and it came together in a way that I just really loved. Like the Chapter 4 trial, I thought for sure that they were, because like they bait you all throughout the game as to thinking the killer is one person when it's another. But in the Chapter 4, it's like, oh, Kyoko, please don't tell me you murdered.
Oh god, the Chapter 4 trial was rough.
Yeah. Oh no, I think in Chapter 5.
Oh, Chapter 5. Oh, okay.
You're thinking of 5. 5 is where they really hinted she's the one that did it.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, and you really think they really play with your emotions there. But I really, really liked her, and that moment when Monokuma's going to needs to execute someone, and they pin it all on you, and you can tell that's like the first time you see her like really distraught portrait, and she's like, I don't expect you to forgive me and all that. And like, wow, that's fucking cold. Like you don't know at that point that she's the killer. I mean, you basically, given Monokuma's actions, you know that no one killed, I can't remember her name.
Mukuro.
And, but boy, does it make you feel bad. Like, you're really going to you're going to sell me out, Kyoko?
I think, if I can go on off a little tangent real quick, I think the best part about the Chapter 5 trial is that when they bring you up that choice, throughout the whole game, you are, like, made to believe that, like, I have to point out all these lies, like, constantly. Like, right? You guys sort of get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when you get that choice of, like, rat her out, you're just sort of like, well, I know that she's wrong, so I'm going to rat her out. Like, that's the great thing that I think that works really well about that, is that you are trained throughout the whole game to expose every lie as best you can. And so you eventually get to that point where you do get to rat Kyoko out and expose the lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I got to that point, I felt like it was a sort of like, because like you say, the whole game is, you're made to point out the contradictions, and that's the whole point of the game. And so up to that point, I felt like, well, Kyoko's being hard on Makoto because, I mean, they're in court. This is how you play the game. You call people on their contradictions. This is just how you do it. And so when it came to that moment, I figured I should just do the same thing. She's being hard on him, so I mean, why would I let up on her? And then, but little did I know that at that point, Monokuma would see that as, well, this is all I really need to just kind of stick her right here. And then they, obviously they take you all through that scene and they really wind you up. And I mean, at this point, the game is so unpredictable, and it's already made very clear. Everyone involved here is at risk. None of these people are promised to you. We could take any one of them at any moment. You will have no idea. And it's a full blown scene. I mean, it could have easily been the real thing. And at that point, I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I'm gonna have to live with this decision, and the story's gonna have to go on from here somehow. It was like, this is despair.
Yeah, it was great stuff.
That's why I think, just like exactly what you said, like that's what works so well about Chapter 5.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty excellent. But Echo. Anyways, let's go on to actually, it's a spoiler cast, so why don't we go through the game itself? Who wants to start with Chapter 1?
I will.
Okay, go for it.
So, like, Chapter 1 was really great because I think that it set the tone of the rest of the game really, really well. Like, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but the execution at the end of the Chapter 1, I think, is probably my favorite execution in the game, just because of how well it sets the tone of the game and how kind of much like despair it makes you feel almost. But let's kind of rewind back to the beginning of the chapter. I like how they kind of introduce the characters in a really tropey way. Like, you could probably tell the character's personality by the first couple of lines, but then the rest of the game is kind of like deconstructing their tropes almost, with a few exceptions. Like Hifumi never really grows; he's always a dingus. But
he sucks. I'm sorry, he's a terrible character.
I don't even know if he has any fans. If he does, then I'm going to offend them all. So sorry in advance. But yeah, like They established the characters really well from the start, and they established the danger by having Monokuma almost explode and kill Mono right at the beginning there.
Mm-hmm.
The school rules were kind of the first warning of how screwed up the game was going to get based on like what they kind of implied and what they encouraged you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like how at first when they were introducing things like Sayaka, whenever I was like, oh, okay, here's the standard like childhood friends anime trope. We're gonna be stuck with her for the entire game, and then they kill her. And I was
they have so much fun with that. Oh man, they love to mess. They have so much fun with her. I love that stuff. When you come out of your room and
know about what they did with the demo, right?
Spend some time with her.
To screw with people. Yeah, in the PSP demo, it's Hagakure that dies first. So I think you see Junko or Mukuro and Sayaka alive in the trial, like to throw everyone off and to make them think like, oh yeah, like the anime waifu is going to be living throughout the whole game.
Yeah, they set the tone perfectly there. That that very I remember that scene where she like has a moment of like weakness and she like collapses on the couch and it's like, well, you gotta keep me, you gotta protect me, right? You'll be there for me, right? And I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing this then. And yeah, they within the next 20 minutes, they do a good job of spinning that on its head.
Yeah,
you're all of a sudden looking at her like bloody, like neon pink bloody body in a bathroom stall, and it's like, yep, oh, check your waifu. Look what we did. Yeah, welcome to DR.
What was that?
Just like, so yeah, that was the moment when I realized how big this game's balls were, and like how deep it was willing to go into down this rabbit hole of like darkness and like nothing. Like you can't really expect anything. Like I remember before the game came out, in a bunch of magazines and websites that I was reading, like Junko was really heavily featured, like not the true Junko, but the Mukuro Junko.
Yeah.
And then like there's that moment in chapter 1 where she blatantly violates the rules that were already set in stone. You're like, oh man, you gotta stop this, you're gonna get in trouble. And then she just gets friggin' shish kebabbed, and it's like, oh Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was only minutes after you find Sayaka. That's like they set the tone there. It's like
they're dropping like flies.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
Well, I just think that the interesting thing is that if you don't know, obviously at the beginning of the game you don't know that Junko is Mukuro, so you would just think that okay, like this girl is going like kind of just nuts right now. She's not obviously trying to perpetrate and continue a plot. She's just going nuts, and therefore she attacks Monokuma. It's like it does a good job at making sure like you don't really suspect much, of course, because by that point in the game you wouldn't. But even just looking back at it, like you wouldn't suspect anything at that point from her.
Well, yeah, it also lets you know like what Monokuma was capable of, because there was a moment where obviously he blew up before, but there's a moment where someone might say if they were into 5 chapters into the game and no one tried to attack Monokuma, that to be like, why don't they just like bull rush this little midget? Like why don't they hold him hostage? But they set the standard pretty quickly that like you can't fuck with this bear.
Yeah, definitely that too.
One thing that I found really cool was like this is a completely retroactive thing. Like there's no way you can know this the first way through. But once you realize that's Mukuro and that she works for Fenrir, the spear that Monokuma summons to kill her, he screams out, "Holy Spirit, gun gear, help me!" And I'm not sure if you're anyone here is familiar with Norse mythology at all, but in Norse mythology, gun gear was the name of the spear that Odin used to kill the mythical wolf Fenrir.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I remember hearing about that just recently. I think I probably saw it.
That's an especially cruel and very Junko thing to do.
Yeah, like she didn't have to name the spear at all. She just chose the exact name that only her sister would get, just so she could screw with her in her final moments. And I've not actually seen the anime, but I've seen some clips from it, and that death in the anime is even more brutal, because instead of just a couple spears going through her chest, they go through like everywhere on her body, like her shoulders and her thighs and her stomach and everywhere. It's crazy. And it just sets the tone even more of how like gruesome and violent this thing's gonna get.
Yeah, it starts off. I really didn't know what to expect. I have not played Ace Attorney. I have not played Virtue's Last Reward or 999 or any of those games. Actually, no, I played like the first like hour of Ace Attorney and it didn't do anything for me. And sorry, but yeah, it was. I thought it was going to be a really predictable game because, like I said in my review, like murder mysteries tend to fit into two categories. Either you can see the killer coming a mile away, killer or killers. You can see it coming a mile away, like. You know, I'll just say it. Persona 4. I think it's really obvious who the killer is in that game, just by a simple process of elimination. And the other thing is, what the fuck was that? Anyways, the other thing is, they introduce the really lazy thing is they introduce a character that there's no way you could have guessed who it was. It's just like, oh, it was. You know, again, just some character that was not in the story. There's no way.
It was the final boss. The final villain in Persona 4 is literally a random NPC that like you don't expect because, well, I mean, how would they be? They're like an NPC with no name.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big cheat on the audience. Like my favorite murder mystery, like one of my favorites is Twin Peaks, and I won't spoil that for anyone. But it's the way when they reveal to you who the killer is, it's pretty glorious, and that's how I felt every trial with DR. It was pretty good, but yeah, that first chapter really sets the tone, and again the rules that no one's safe, and your expectations are kind of shitting themselves right now. But Keats, what did you think?
I thought it was great. I thought by that point, or by chapter 2, I didn't know the game was just a set story, and I thought they were killing off all the waifus I was social linking with. Because every time I did one person, they would die.
So you thought it was like as you were playing?
Yeah, I thought it was one of those kind of choose your own adventure things, because I knew nothing going in. But that started to frustrate me. I almost didn't want to social link anyone. I was about to go socially, but Bayakio? I can't pronounce his name.
Bayakua?
Yeah, that guy. I was going to go social link him.
We could just call him Tagami for clarity's sake.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But, yeah, So let's put it this way. Did any of you, when you saw Sayaka was brutally murdered, did any of you piece together, not before the trial, did you think you had it down what had happened?
Relatively speaking, with the dying message, I think, at least for me, it became kind of obvious. I mean, I didn't expect this is exactly how it happened, but I'm like, okay, I know who the killer is.
Yeah, that was painfully obvious.
I didn't look at it. I didn't have the kind of context to look at the message like that to make it obvious, but for a second though, because for most of the game, I always made it a point, if the character was around, I wanted to know what they had to say. And you can see Leon in the hall, where the dorms are after, that happens and everything. And I remember talking to him in the hall, and the sprite they use for him when you talk to him, then it's the same one that they show when the character is like breaking down and they're blue in the face, which at this point it's chapter 1 of the game. So you've only seen this look once on like Sayaka, so you don't really understand it yet as the visual language of this character feels like their back is against the wall, because they all have it. Byakuya has it, Kyoko has it. It's how they look when they feel like they're cornered. But I remember seeing that sprite on him and thinking to myself, well, that's kind of suspicious. Maybe he did it. So for a fleeting second, I thought, well, maybe it was Leon, and that was that one time, and then ultimately it was him.
Yeah, I didn't think it ahead of time, because I did not look at I didn't think actually too much into the number. I thought it was just going to come as the trial went along. It wasn't until the point where, I think Kyoko straight up says, look at the examine the message more closely, and then I flip my Vita over. I'm like, oh, that's pretty clever. and then yeah, it was a pretty great moment. You feel really betrayed by Sayaka at that point. I think we all agree on that, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
I think that is the thing that really truly subverts her trope. The fact that you learn that ultimately she had it coming.
I don't know.
Dark.
It's like what Mike says from Breaking Bad, right?
It is. What's the quote?
The quote is, I was being sexist. Trust me, this woman deserves to die as much as any man I've ever known. Because it's totally true, because they play on that, because you don't want to believe what, because, you know, that's your quote-unquote waifu, or that's the king characters, you know, the childhood friend, and you know, like, it's so fucked up when you think back on it, because she's like, I always noticed you, but you never talked to me, and all this, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sakes, you fucking witch. But
I watched enough anime to know that was coming, though.
Complete manipulation.
She looked identical to a character with the same trope, like, just like always stuck up you, childhood friend, and turns out to be crazy. I knew it was coming the second I saw it. I was like, you.
But yeah, that was a great moment. But I you know, I actually felt, you know, when they reveal it to be Leon, I felt pretty bad for him, even though, you know, what he did was pretty awful. She entrapped him and tried to kill him, but like, you know, there's definitely that sense of desperation that you know, he had no other choice, right?
Yeah, well, like, I think that the game established the tone really well at first when it was revealed that Leon was the killer. Because he starts off kind of like, man, you're just joking, right? Like, this is just a silly game. But then it kind of goes off the deep end where he starts like screaming like, oh, and it just kind of goes crazy.
Well, I think when you say like he had no choice, as if you mean like being the killer, like Kyoko, I think Kyoko brings it up multiple times, like you could have stopped at any point, but he didn't. Yeah. He went and finished the deed. So
I guess that's true.
Yeah. He is pretty reprehensible for that fact alone. Like in theoretically, he could have stopped, and then they would have all shown up at the dining hall the next morning, and of course, it would have been tense between Sayaka and Leon, but I mean, it's not like anyone would have been like, oh, like, you tried to kill me, monster. Because then he would have been like, you tried to kill me. Yeah, but
you've seen what she's capable of in terms of manipulation. She totally could have spun it on, you know, I'm the sweet pop idol, like this scary baseball player just tried to kill me.
He's multiple times stronger than me because he's the ultimate baseball star and an athlete. How could I kill him?
No, yeah, that is true. But so, I mean, like, I feel like it would have been a lot different assuming that he stopped. Like, he could have stopped, but he didn't. Yeah, and as such,
he could have stopped. The bottom line is Leon had made a choice, and he happened to make the wrong choice.
Yeah.
In a way, I almost think that Leon like anticipated that. Like he realized that there's no way that people would believe him over the innocent, sweet pop star that's world famous. Mm-hmm. So. Like, going back to the kind of Breaking Bad analogy, I think he kind of thought to himself, like, okay, I can't have any half measures. So he broke into the bathroom and stabbed her to death just so that there's there's a smaller chance of him getting convicted. At this point, they didn't know that if they didn't catch the killer, then everyone would die. Yeah. So I think that he figured that if he let her go, then she'd just go kill someone else, and then they'd all be screwed. Or either that, or they put him to death. Because of, or they at the very least they'd distrust him and like string him up or something. So I don't know. It's a hard moral dilemma, but I think that I don't want to say he made the right decision because killing someone is never the right decision. But at the same time, I can kind of see what he was thinking at the time, and I can kind of I don't really condone it, but I understand what he did.
This is going to be Vince Gilligan's game of the year.
Leon just feels like he just focuses on the short term a lot. So I don't see him as like sort of thinking like that. I mean, when you think about his reason to become a musician, he's like, oh well, the girl at the hair salon likes musicians. Like, so I mean, I definitely like think that's interesting, like what you bring up. But for me, I just sort of see him as just trying to get out once the opportunity presents itself.
Well, there's also the argument that. You know, Kyoko and Byakuo probably wouldn't buy into Sayaka's, you know, I'm a sweet pop star thing. But there's too much that would have fallen, you know, if he...
So, like, it's a majority vote, so...
Yeah, but there's no vote in the sense that, like, if no one died, then everything would have been fine, right? Like, obviously they wouldn't trust Leon, but he is a target painted on the rest of the game if that was the case. True, but there is that moment, like, because there's not going to be a trial unless someone actually dies, so no one's going to be voted. But you know, she could have played that up in a lot of ways, and you know, it was. I felt bad for him still. You know, bitch came at him with a knife, but
like they always do.
Wink, you got what you deserve, my son.
The only murder I don't feel bad for is Celeste. That's it. Everyone else, relatively speaking, varying shades of bad feeling.
So, should we jump on to chapter 2 then?
Can we talk about that execution though?
Execution's the best.
Go ahead.
Like, okay, so I really wish that they had done what they did with the execution for the rest of the game, because it was so friggin' scary at first. Just like the way Leon looks around, he's completely like he's completely like terrified and bewildered at what's going on, and then the chain shoots out of the darkness and grabs him behind the neck and literally drags him to batting practice, and then he gets bludgeoned to death by baseballs, and the everything's perfect, like the lighting, the music, the sound effects, it just works so well to create this really horrifying, like, awful image that I think that the rest of the executions kind of missed out on that by going a little bit too goofy or a little bit too over the top, with the exception of like Kyoko or Makoto's, because that one was really dark. But other than that, I think the rest of them were kind of goofy and over the top to an extent, and it kind of worked against the dark tone they were trying to set.
Actually, Mondo Butter is really corny. I think when that happened. That Mondo Butter. I'm sorry. I was like, this is kind of corny. Like I don't really buy this one. Like
it really diminishes like what happens. I think.
I understand they're going for a little Black Sambo reference there, but like they could have done it a little bit better way. Like there are other ways you could have done that without making it so cheesy and over the top. Sorry, Levito.
Fair enough. No, I mean for me, the whole game is kind of tongue in cheek. So I mean, this isn't The Wire. I don't know.
It is almost definitely a black comedy. After a while, I came to know it as it's a black comedy because they're making jokes and the characters laugh, and obviously Monokuma is having a very good time with the debts and with messing with them, with the cast and everything. And it's very dark, but it's still very much into its humor.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything is. It's like I said. That's what I like about it. Is on a dime, it can be really funny even after you see something horrible. But Chapter 2. So Chapter 2 is when, the despair starts to set in. We forgot to establish that they're trapped in the school, but I guess anyone listening...
If it's a spoiler cast.
Yeah, they know. But, yeah, the Chapter 2, I didn't have the slightest idea as to what had happened with Chihiro's murder. I remember I kind of had a feeling she might go when she's like, Byakuya like snaps at her and says shut up or whatever, and when they're talking at one point in the where are they talking? Probably doesn't matter. The lunchroom, and she says I'm sorry, and then Mondo jumps to her defense, and you could tell that it was gonna center around those characters at that.
I felt like that was an even bigger telegraph than in Chapter 1 when Sayaka's doing all this stuff with Makoto. Something's going to result like weird from that when she's talking to Makoto like that, and ultimately it does. But I felt like they were immediately after the killing happened. I knew I was like, Mondo is tied to this somehow because that scene almost kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, he's very he's very aggressive, and he challenges Byakuya to a fight and everything. Actually, just like he threatens to knock him out, and then Chihiro says, I want to get stronger. I don't want to be so weak anymore. And then I think it's like 3 days in. I think every murder happens 3 days, right? In the game?
It's a few days. I don't know any specifics, but yeah, it's a couple days.
Yeah, but you get 2 days of downtime, and then something happens. But like I remember when she was in the crucifixion pose, I was like, Jesus Christ!
It really ramps up, yeah.
That was.
I think that crucifixion pose. I think that moment is actually the darkest imagery in the game. I think.
Well, definitely.
Yeah.
It was a moment that was just like, good God. Again, they're reminding you that no one's safe. But yes, what did you guys think about that?
Yeah,
Chapter 2.
I think
when I first saw.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You go for it, Smed.
No, I was gonna go off on just a tangent about like the murders as a whole. So go for it. My bad.
Okay, so like when I first saw Chihiro's corpse, actually the eyes were gouged out because of the position that she's in the lighting of the scene. So I thought that kind of even though that wasn't so in the end, it kind of made me go, holy crap, and it really established a good tone for the rest of the case. And I really like how in the trial they fake you out like 3 or 4 times as to who the killer is. Because first you think it might be Genocide Jack, but then you think it might be Byakuya, and then you have no idea who it is, and then you realize, oh, it's Mondo.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is kind of cool that in a way, the murder wasn't really covered up to hide the crime. It was covered up to protect Chihiro's secret.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure that he obviously didn't want to get executed, and that there was definitely a lot of self-preservation in there. But the fact that he went to the trouble of switching what dressing room or what change room she was killed in, just so that it would look like that to protect Chihiro's secret, was kind of a cool twist on the entire covering up the murder deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people give Byakuya enough flack for what he did, because that was a pretty heinous, awful thing.
I thought that in the game too. It's like, that's fucking so creepy.
And all to make things interesting, basically. That just shows sort of how like messed up Togami is in that regard.
Yeah. In the same regard, I don't think people give Mondo enough credit for going to the trouble to like cover up the crime scene like that, because really he could have just walked away. He didn't really have to try to protect Chihiro's secret. I mean, he possibly put himself in jeopardy, but at that point, I mean, he killed a kid out of rage, and it's the most callous killing in the whole game, because it is totally like a crime of idiotic passion. But so at least he had some honor after the fact.
That was the only one that I couldn't believe that I didn't think it was. Basically, I thought the killer was Sakura. And there's two reasons. At first, it was because it was in the girls' change room, and second, it was because like the dumbbell was fucking huge. The barbell was huge, so I'm like, okay, it's either Mondo or Sakura that can lift that. But I don't know why it didn't occur to me that it could be Mondo until like I think Kyoko says, "Do you notice what he said about his tracksuit?"
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh fuck.
I think that's a really common like thing that they use in crime games is I never mentioned that detail. How'd you know that? But I think they chose a good point to use in the game. That's like the only time in the entire game where they used that trope. But they used it to pretty decent effect. And in a way, I do think it's kind of interesting that Byakuya accidentally covered up the crime so well that no one would know who did it if Mondo hadn't slipped up that once.
I thought it was him the whole time. I saw the whole Genocide Jill thing coming. I was like, they're gonna try and pin it on her, but it was really
the gangster always has to be the killer. Is that how it is?
To be honest, I kind of feel that Genocide Jill, like she was basically a comic relief character, but I knew as soon as she was revealed, it's like this character is never ever going to be the killer.
I think it would make it too obvious.
I think if you look at the 6 characters that actually survive in the end, they picked everyone who they felt was blatantly obvious. Byakuya and Genocide Jill made it because they were the 2 most obvious characters who had the potential to kill. Mm-hmm. Asahina and Hagakure made it because they were the 2 obvious victims. Kyoko made it because of what she is, and Makoto made it because you're Makoto. Like I feel like from the outset they said, okay, who are we got to get our most obvious killers and our most obvious victims, and then not use them. Because I was waiting I figured by chapter 4 he'd be out.
Yeah,
I just knew by chapter 4 she'd be out of there.
I figured she was going to be the victim in 2 because it was in a pool.
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought so too. She specifically they're in a pool, and I remember, what was it? I think it was during the investigation. I somehow got it in the mind that it was Hina or maybe it was the first case, because I saw like a swimsuit hanging up in the laundry room. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, but that was just the one thing with the whole Genocide Jill thing. That's like, okay, so Toko is a split personality.
Yeah, she's officially going to make it for the rest of the thing, because she's too obvious a target, and she's clearly comic relief. Like that, for me in that trial, I was thinking to myself, okay, so she's Genocide Jill. So depending on how they proceed with this, if they force it as an issue amongst the characters, like if they force it as a thing, oh my God, we're trapped here with a serial killer, we got to get rid of her, then she'll die. But if they continue to play it as comic relief, she's going to live through the whole game, which they continue to do.
I remember one of my favorite moments in the game, in terms of funny moments, was Byakuya's, always picking on Toko and always putting her down, and the whole trial. I can't remember what he says to Genocide Jill, but she just like, shut your mouth, Kerr, and he's just like all put off by that.
Oh yeah,
like,
he's just like, what did you say?
Yeah, it was since the president that she's very different from her other half, but yeah, that I wasn't. When he was like feeding you the clues and whatnot, that like, oh, this is Genocide Jack, and this is who I think one of the people in here with us. Like it's one of those things where it's like it's too obvious that it's Byakuya.
Yeah.
But there has to be a reason why he's he wants you to be his like right hand man at that point, you know.
Especially when he talks about doesn't that locker room look really suspicious, don't you think? And you're just like, what? Like, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, kind of is suspicious, I guess. There's a dead body in here.
Yeah, there was. It does seem crazy. Maybe if there was any point that I really liked it, what happened in the game, but if there was any point that I'm like, that seems like such a stretch for character motivation. But I do think it's crazy that he changed the murder scene just to like try and expose who Genocide Jill or Genocide Jack or what have you, and it was like, God, that was weird.
Yeah, like I think it's going back to the entire Genocide Jack thing. I think it's kind of interesting that it even points out in universe how stupid it would be if she killed anyone. I think she even says at one point, like when someone accuses her for like the fourth time, it's like they're in case 4, and she says, "What am I, the special guest suspect of the week now?" And then she points out how stupid killing someone in the game would be because how obvious the target she is.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. It's one of those things where it's just, you know that it's not her ever.
Yeah, like there's not a single point in any of the cases where I said, "Oh, okay, the killer is Genocide Jack." No, like they did a pretty good job of shutting down the possibility in every single case.
Yeah, but yeah, that chapter 2's ending though, man, that was when you finally exposed Mondo, and I like that you didn't have to go through the fucking
bullet time battle.
The bullet time battle at all, because he just mans up and admits it.
Well, you do go through it with Taka though.
You go with you do with that
Shimura.
character, but you don't do it with him. Is what I'm saying. Like he just admits it because he knows
that's part of what makes Mondo so great is that he actually ends up like manning up and admitting it.
Yeah, that was what I liked about Celeste's fall in Chapter 4, was that even for that, because the whole thing with her character was that she was a fake, she was a phony. There was nothing that was genuine about her, and that's why she would never really integrate with the group in a way that was real. But I liked that when they finally did have her cornered, for that one fleeting moment, she copped to it and said, that's not, this is my real name, and here it is, and that's it. And I just love Makoto's commentary that, like, in that one moment, like she's forcing a smile, but it's like that's what shows you she's just a bad liar. But just that as brief as a moment as it was, that really endeared me to her death, because I was really hoping for the whole game that she would kind of finally get with the group. She contributes so much to their group scene and to the trial. She's always in it. She always is like, she's on it with the evidence and stuff, and she's got like fun dialogue with the rest of them, even though she's like so mean. At least she's willing to be around them, which you don't get from Tagami.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fair enough. Let's hold off on the other chapters till we finish, because we're going through the whole game. But so yeah, it was pretty depressing, especially when you see his the whole promise between brothers thing when it exposes. I forgot to bring this up. The whole reason the murder happened is because Monokuma threatened to expose a secret, expose a secret to from each character, and obviously like. Makoto's is just like, yeah, I wet the bed until I was in the 5th grade, and most of them probably were just something harmless like that. But then, obviously Mondo's was something he didn't want to part with. Does someone want to explain why Mondo did what he did to the listeners?
So like, what Mondo's motivation was when he was like a young boy, his older brother Daya. Started up this motorcycle gang that quickly grew to become one of the like bigger and most influential motorcycle gangs in Japan. And Mondo, like, this is revealed more through his social links, but Mondo never really had like a place in life. Like he was never particularly good at anything. So he figured that if he just kind of rid his older brother's coattails, and he'd be able to get somewhere in life. So he joined the gang too, and he was his older brother's right hand man. But he was always kind of in his shadow. Like no matter what happened, people always say behind his back, "Oh, that's Daya's little brother. He's just like riding his coattails. This is he's only getting where he is because he's Daya's brother." So then, in order to prove that he was his own person, that he was bigger than Daya, on the night when Daya was supposed to retire from his leadership, Mondo challenged him to a race through the city, and Mondo kind of lost control for a second and then got sloppy, and he almost got hit by a bus, but Daya pushed him out of the way and got hit by the bus and ended up dying. But he made Mondo promise to take care of his gang for him and make sure that they didn't fall apart. So it's implied in the first chapter that the video that Monokuma shows Mondo is of the gang disbanding, which obviously puts him under a bunch of stress. And then Mondo feels responsible for killing, for Daya's death, and he thinks that it's his fault. So Monokuma's secret that he was going to reveal to the world in the second chapter was that Mondo let his brother die, or Mondo was responsible for his brother's death.
Do you remember what his brother said, though? That was what I meant.
Yeah, So what his brother said was just to take care of the game, that they didn't fall apart, and that he should keep his promises no matter what.
Promises brothers or whatever. That was like the whole.
I think it is.
Yeah, that was the whole thing about, spoilers. Chihiro was, pretending to be a girl so that you're echoing, Ron.
Oh, sorry.
The whole point of Chihiro came to Mondo because he was actually, it wasn't a girl, and he pretended to be a girl, so people wouldn't accuse him being weak constantly, and that ties into the whole, like, he kept his promise to his brother, to his friend, or between men, whatever, that he wouldn't reveal Chihiro's secret. So they tried to tie it all in at one point or another.
Yeah, it was a promise among men, I think were his exact words.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of debate about that character, too. Oh, boy. About
Chihiro?
About Chihiro's gender and all that.
Oh, wow, I haven't seen any of that yet.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
In the Tumblr world, basically.
Yeah. If you search Chihiro on Google Images, there's a picture of her with a shirt or him with a shirt that says, "My gender is fuck you." So that tells you exactly how everyone feels about it.
That'll do, Tumblr. That will do.
But so yeah, two was probably my second favorite chapter of the whole game. It was pretty excellent. Should we go into 3?
Sure.
Let's go on to 3.
Yeah.
Go ahead, lead into it, someone.
3 has a villain named Robo Justice.
Oh, really?
Oh, Robo Justice.
Oh, I was just shooting my mouth off about 3, so I maybe I can talk about 3.
Go for it.
Okay, so I thought, chapter 3, this is another thing where, like, in the beginning of it, I had suspected that it might be Celeste, simply
Gee, sorry about that. Anyone heard my phone?
I thought it might be Celeste simply because she's the first person that gets attacked by this Robo Justice thing. But that was, again, a fleeting thought. I didn't even really. I guess I kind of noticed how she was, like, doing all the yelling and stuff like they were saying, and it was kind of a natural for her. But other than that, it was a sort of an afterthought still. But I just thought that crime, that has to be the crime in the game that is the most like mechanical, like someone really like sat down. Obviously with Celeste, she really sat down and thought about it. I mean, it was just it was brutal. She had like actual pawns involved, and I think that's the thing about that crime, is that they all obviously involve multiple people and things go wrong. But I mean, hers is the only one with like really like deep thought out intent. Like, this is what she was. Not only was she going to do this, she sat down and thought about it to try and make sure that it went smoothly, and manipulated multiple individuals to make it happen.
I knew for a fact that I knew instantly that she was the killer. She was acting way too obvious, in my opinion. Like, oh, I just saw someone run up the stairs and I screamed and this and that. It's like, okay, Celeste, I get it. You killed them.
See, I think for me, I was just so passive and experienced in the game that I never really suspected her. So I think that just sort of like threw me off, really, is just finally seeing like, oh, wow, this is pretty elaborate.
Especially her ultimate. She was, what was it, the ultimate gambler? Like,
yeah, she's ultimate gambler. Like, you can't really. I knew she was going to do something, and I knew that it was going to happen in either chapter 3 or 4. I knew there was going to, because you can tell just by the whole demeanor of the character. Like, and it's not as. I think she's almost as obvious a killer as Byakuya is, but one of them had to stay alive, and I had a feeling that she would be the one to go, and I just knew it's going to be either after chapter 2. I was like, okay, chapter 3 or 4, Celeste is going to be up. Something's going to happen, and she's going to be at the heart of it. And I guess I thought it would be chapter 4.
So let's run down a bit what happened. So they discover Alter Ego after Chihiro dies, and Alter Ego is like this. What is it, like AI that Chihiro created? Because Chihiro was the ultimate programmer.
Yeah, it's like an AI that Chihiro created, and it can talk, and I don't believe it can hear because they always type in questions.
Yeah.
Like they make a note of that. I don't believe it can hear, but it can talk in Chihiro's voice, I think.
Yeah, and for some Bolt I can't say his name. Hifumi. What the fuck?
Hifumi?
Yamato.
Hifumi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He falls for that. Again, that was one of the moments I really didn't like that character. It's like okay, I get it. He's a hopeless nerd and he fell in love with a computer program. I get it. It's that. I guess they just made the movie Her, so maybe it's not that far out there. But you could tell between him and oh god, sorry, I'm forgetting names. Who was Mondo's bro?
Ishimaru.
Ishimaru. Yeah. When they start going at it. The obvious instinct is to think that one of them is going to murder the other, or they're going to be manipulated in some way because they're both like really emotional, dumb kids. And the reason why did Mondo appeared on the laptop? That's why. God, I'm forgetting his name again. What the fuck is his name? Taka. Okay. Taka says like, "Oh, my bro's there. We can interact again." And he snaps out of his like coma fugue state. Whoa, who's destroying the keyboard?
Was that me?
That
Sorry.
Was was really loud.
I thought I muted my mic. My bad.
But there was like that moment where they're going back and forth, and you think obviously they're going to the case is going to involve them, and
then Mondo's spirit fuses with Taka's.
What the fuck was that?
It's kind of silly, I think.
What was that?
That was another thing that was just like, guys, this is a little off.
It was like the second point in
I'm
Dangan
not sure
Ronpa
if
where
you're
I
like
felt
trying to like it.
This is too anime.
I was
for
just
me.
like, it was like, I'm not sure if you guys are trying to poke fun at the fusion thing in Dragon Ball Z, as famous as that is, or what's going on here. But this, I'm not sure that this story move is landing the way you wanted it to.
I think it was just more implying Taka had snapped.
But his hair turned white and his eyes were on fire.
Well, that's just an anime thing.
Oh, gosh darn it, anime.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It didn't really feel. It didn't really feel. It was like it's like why don't we? What's the point of this though? Is it just a weird anime thing? Is there no meaning behind it? Because that's kind of out of character for Dangan Ronpa to do something like that with no like I don't know, weird subversion behind it or something. I don't know. It didn't really play for me. And then like we obviously like I don't want to get too far ahead, but I mean the kid dies afterwards.
So first you find Mufi and he's on the ground. That's who you find first, right?
Yes.
Yes, you find him in any.
You find him in the nursing home.
Yeah, you find him in the library, right? Or we
No, you don't.
Oh no, it's the library.
Yeah, and he's bleeding, and he says that he got attacked by Robo Justice. Yeah. No, that's how it starts. Celeste says that she got attacked by a mysterious figure, and then she's like, I got a picture of it because she had the camera, and it's a robot is dragging him off. I'm like, what the fuck is this? and so my first thought was like, okay, whoever's in the robot suit, it's got to be like Sakura. Again, I always wanted to accuse her just because she was big.
Monster.
But yeah.
I saw the robot suit and I thought to myself, okay, the killer has to be Peter Cullen.
Peter Cullen, yes, definitely.
The killer was Michael Bay.
What? Yeah, definitely.
Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Never mind. But so then you find Hamufi inside the nursing station. Like, okay, I guess he's gone. That was like one of the only murders I was like, oh, thank fuck.
I felt the same way.
No remorse whatsoever.
Yeah,
none.
You guys didn't like your fellow ultimate gaffer dying?
Yeah, but no, that was that. He's the kind of person I would admire Naoto in a cat suit. But then you bolt upstairs because Sakura. No, it's Baikua and Toko find Taka
with Celeste. With Sakura.
Yeah,
okay.
I believe so. And then you're like, oh shit, 2 murders happened at once, and then. No. You figure out. Someone else explain this. My mind's ajar. Like Hamufi.
You figure out that like Hifumi wakes up and he's not. He had blood on him, but he wasn't really dead yet. And then somehow the bodies disappear. Then they find them again. Makoto and Byakuya open the door to the repository, and they find them both. and then Hifumi wakes up for a brief moment to say that the killer was Yasuhiro.
Do you guys mind if I sort of name one of my two grievances with the localization real quick with that scene?
Sure.
Because, okay, so I read the Let's Play, and basically the way it's translated is, in the Japanese version, Yamada basically would call everyone, like, say, for example, like, Makoto, he'd say, Negi Makoto Dono, and that was the real shtick to him, was that he was just a massive nerd, and he would use this really outdated language, which they sort of lost in the English version. So when he says the name Yasuhiro, first, it sort of makes you think, like, oh, well... Like, you think that, yeah, it would be, yes, like, Hagakure, but when you end up getting to that point, it's eventually like, oh, like, that's the actual name. That was the last name first. And I feel like that kind of got really lost in the English version. And it just sort of kind of bugged me.
Yeah, and I know.
That's one of those things.
Because they're like, oh, like, you know how he always called everyone, like, say, like, Mr. or, like, anything like that? I'm like, he didn't really do that much. So I don't really get what you're talking about, game.
Yeah, when they did that and they played the flashback scene of him calling Makoto Mr. Naegi, in that moment I had to say to myself,
that was the only time he did it, as far as I remember.
It was like, oh, I guess he did call him that, but even then I thought to myself, but he's only called Makoto that like once or twice,
yeah.
not enough for any of you to be like, hey, remember that was a thing Hifumi did.
I feel like they kind of wrote themselves in a corner by taking out the honorifics with that one point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just my like grievance with it.
Yeah, try not to talk over each other, you guys. But yeah, there was that whole case. I got to be honest. I kind of think that's the weakest case in the game. Honestly, it's interesting, but again, I didn't care really about the two people that died, and I thought it was really obvious that Celeste did it. So what she did was pretty fucked up, right? She basically goads Humufi into doing it. She's like, he tried to assault me. Or Taka tried to assault me, and then Humufi's like, oh, I'm a fucking white knight, so I'll have to protect you and whatnot. And then they put up this whole elaborate ploy, and Celeste murders Humufi after they move the body, and it's like, well,
it's almost like I'm a doujinshi author, so let me now suddenly let me turn into a hypocritical like white knight, like raging moron. It was like, what? Yeah. He was that dumb? Yeah. Okay, guys.
Well, a lot of the cast is pretty dumb if you think about it, to be fair.
What do you mean?
I mean, just like, think about, a lot of the characters seem kind of dopey in a way, like Yasuhiro, Asahina, Yamada, they are all sort of... okay. That's just sort of what I mean, like, they aren't exactly the brightest.
I thought you thought like the Persona 4 thing, where it's really obvious who the killer is and no one... Okay. But, no, it's cool. But... yeah, I don't have a ton more to say about Chapter 3, other than I thought Celeste's execution was the coolest one.
I didn't like it as much.
Really?
It felt really random.
Same here, actually.
It
felt
kind of just random, like just it's fire, and then a fire truck out of nowhere, just like it just I don't know. I wasn't a big fan.
Well,
of it.
Like that's kind of the point though. Like Celeste said that she wanted to die a really dramatic like execution. She even said that she wanted to be reincarnated as Marie Antoinette so she could die another really dramatic, flashy death. And that was kind of Monokuma's point with that. Was that he starts giving her a really like dramatic, over the top death by burning by the stake, but then she just gets ran by a fire truck. And I think that like vehicular accidents, like the second or third most common way people die, so that she, in a way, Monokuma made sure that she died as a commoner, not as a royalty or as the persona that she wanted to be.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, overall, I wasn't a fan of it compared to, because I think all of the other executions are all really great. And hers, to me, was just the most, like, tepid.
I liked that one. I don't know. That was, like, that whole, like I said, that whole case, like, I just felt like it was so obvious what was coming. Am I alone in that?
No, it's obvious that it's her, and you know what? That case is also really long-winded because you have to take the time to figure out just exactly what she made them do to each other.
Yeah,
it takes a long time, and it is at a certain point. If it's not obvious immediately, after a certain point, it's really obvious that it's her, and
Chapter
it's so
3
like
just stretches.
long-winded. Chapter 3. Originally, I thought, oh man, this game is like Ace Attorney, but there's no filler case. Nah, Chapter 3 might be the game's filler case.
Yeah, that's just sort of the part where actually playing through, I'm just like, this is way too long. Even knowing like what to do, I was just like, this is just going on like way too long at a certain point.
Yeah, it's all streamlined really. It's not like Ace Attorney where like because when you're in a place, right, like you can't for people who play this Ace Attorney, when you're in a place in Ace Attorney and you don't have all the clues, it doesn't matter. You can leave a room and not come back. You can't progress the case until you get everything, but you can leave rooms. In Dangan Ronpa, when you enter a room and there's clues there, you have to get the clue before Makoto will let you leave the room. Like, it's all, and of course you can pop up the menu and see what you can click on. So it's all streamlined really well. But the game is obviously so verbose and everything that the case still takes a long time, even when you very easily get exactly what you need to get.
So yeah, it was. I think we're all in agreement that Chapter 3 is like the weak one. You know, I'm kind of indifferent to what happened. Go ahead.
My main problem with Chapter 3 was that Celeste, like, she's built up as like this master plotter or whatever, and like the characters act as though her plan was like a really like cunning thing to do. But if you think about it, it was a really, really, really dumb plan.
Yeah, especially
kind of
involving
like
the movie.
Like the entire thing about Hifumi like acting dead and making a miraculous recovery. Like people like, no, that's bullcrap. Like, they're not. The cast is kind of dopey and dumb, like you said before, but they're not that stupid. They know if something was up as soon as Hifumi miraculously recovered after almost being killed by a giant suit of mecha armor. And by the way, as soon as you saw a giant suit of mecha armor, I knew that, okay, Hifumi's involved in this some way. No one can think of something this dumb.
Yeah, I actually didn't connect that, I'll be honest. Seeing the picture with the mecha armor and be like, oh yeah, like Yamada is the big anime nerd. Like, that makes sense.
And again, that whole thing, because at one point Celeste tries to pin it on. Who does she try and pin it on?
Hero.
Hero, yeah. She tries to pin it on Hero. And again, it's like he's so dumb, and it's so obvious that it's not him.
Yeah,
like, why?
That's the thing.
The whole case is a good example of
how not to plan a murder.
How not to plan a murder, and also what not to do in your murder mystery. Because like it kind of feels like all the bad elements are there. Characters you don't care about, at least in my point of view. I didn't care about either victim, really, especially Hamufi. It's just like, holy fuck, I can't, this character's insufferable. But, yeah, and making it way too obvious, because, like, Celeste was acting way out of character, and it's like, she's going to make a play at some point. She's the ultimate gambler. That's the whole point of her character, and it's like, yeah, okay.
With the motive of money, it's just like, okay, this is sort of coming along pretty soon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because that was her whole thing. Is she really wanted the money, right?
She wanted vampire butlers.
Yeah, that was like one of my favorite moments because it made me laugh.
It's really dumb, but at the same time, it's like,
yeah,
like you can almost see that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is definitely dumb, but that's kind of what I liked about it. Is she just wants to live like as like a fucking like vampire kid with like all these butlers worshiping her. God,
I do appreciate that case gave us the moment when the characters are discussing the motive, and then like Byakuya makes it immediately clear that that's like chunk change to him, so there's no way he's going to murder for that small amount of money.
Mm-hmm, yeah, exactly.
Like he talks about how he has $40 billion accounts as pocket change.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, again, Byakuya is one of those characters that's just he's never going to be the killer. He's great.
He's just he's too dopey. That's the thing.
Yeah, but anyways. So should we move on to 4?
Yeah, sounds good.
So 4 was a pretty interesting one. 4 was one of the ones that I really did not see what happened. I did not expect to happen.
I think 4 was my favorite overall.
Well, do you want to talk about how 4 goes down?
Oh yeah, sure. So basically, at the end of, I believe it's at the end of 3, Kyoko talks about the secret room, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, that is.
Makoto goes into the secret room, gets knocked out. All of the files that he had found, that he had seen, were gone. Like the entire room has been emptied out. So he ends up leaving. He's still feeling kind of messed up from getting knocked out by mysterious luchador in a white suit. Goes into the gymnasium because I think he hears something and sees Sakura and Monokuma fighting off and talking about like, oh, like you're going against our promise now. And sort of being confused by that. And he doesn't want to bring it up because, of course, he doesn't have anything conclusive. So it's sort of, after that, I think they all sort of agree, like, not to murder each other, really. Or, like, just to sort of stay friendly to each other, more or less. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so...
Yeah, you're right.
So they all go on, and over the few days... Makoto wants to bring up that, oh, hey, he wants to bring up to Sakura, like, hey, did I really see what I thought I saw? Like, were you fighting off against Monokuma? But he doesn't get a chance to because she's feeling weak, of course, from the battle. And then eventually the motive becomes, because they aren't killing each other, Monokuma gives the motive of, oh, there's a mole, by the way, it's Sakura, enjoy. And that is when Yasuhiro, Togami, and Toko end up all turning against her because they're all afraid that she's going to kill one of them sooner or later.
Well, there was also, like, because 4 starts, or 3, the transition between 3 and 4 is when Kyoko tells you about the secret room, and
and then you go get knocked out by El Fuerte.
Yeah, by Rey Mysterio. But yeah, that was that moment when you see
hit by an unmarked Lincoln Town car.
Yeah, when you see Sakura and Monokuma fighting, it's like, well, it's pretty obvious who the mole is at that point.
Yeah.
We forgot to talk about at the end of 2. Is it the end of 2 where they tease that Monokuma has a spy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That was one of the best
outline.
That was one of my favorite moments. It was like, oh, wow, someone's working with them. And obviously they do the whole gray. I always liken how in the little comic book panels and everything. Yeah, where the actual killer is always represented by this like gray child.
Yeah, and they get like the sort of defining features of each character more or less. But it's still like the sort of ambiguous. Yeah, I like that.
But
there's always very suspiciously gray and naked.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was that God, 4 was such a ride though.
4 was great. And then so do you want me to continue on with that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so if I'm correct, so the mole is announced, and then at that point Togami and Toko only end up showing to the breakfast meetings because if they're there with everyone else, then of course Sakura can't do anything. And Hina ends up getting very heated with Togami, slaps him, and at one point, I think at another morning, Toko or Genocide Jack attacks Asahina with the scissors, which enrages Sakura even more. And at that point, Sakura's like, "I'm going to end this." Which, of course, when the other characters hear about this, they're all just like, "Oh God, I'm going to die." So you end up finding her. I can't remember if it's the next day or what, but you end up finding her in the 3rd floor in the rec room, and the door is locked.
Hina finds her, right?
Yeah. Hina finds her, says, "Oh, like something's wrong with Sakura." You end up going with Kyoko, and breaking open the door, and seeing that she's dead somehow.
Well, because what I really liked about this case was, obviously, your first instinct is it's Hina, right?
Well, I figured it.
The killer is?
Honestly, my first instinct was that it was suicide, and Hina assisted in it.
I knew it was suicide from the beginning just because of the situation. Like it was just based on the room. It was literally impossible to kill her and then lock the room with a chair from the inside. But I didn't know how until near the end. At first, I thought she just killed herself because she got hit 3 times in the head. It's like, well, all you scumbags hate me, and I'm just gonna do it for you.
I guess that's that.
That would be ridiculous, though. The worst suicide ever.
Even less than the room can be locked. The fact that they went to the trouble to mention the poison in the lab that you find earlier, I was like, okay, so there's obviously gonna be a suicide.
Yeah.
For me, I thought that what they were gonna do was play up that the whole because they hint at a close friendship, or even hint at a romantic relationship between Hina and Sakura, and I thought this whole thing was going to turn into Hina did not want anything to do with Sakura. It was just like a ploy so she could trick her or something. That's what I thought it was eventually going to turn into, but not so much.
I think
Mizono really traumatized you, huh?
What?
Mizono, she really traumatized you.
No,
you thought someone else would do that.
No, well, it could happen though.
Yeah,
I think they sort of try and trick you when Kyoko mentions the locked room. And it's like, oh, there's only 4 ways that the locked room works, and they sort of try and use that to sort of red herring you.
Yeah.
Away from the idea that Sakura killed herself.
Yes, and the whole handprints on the locker too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really convoluted. Did you want to explain what happened with that murder?
Okay, so essentially the way it works is that once Sakura is found out, she ends up sending notes to the 3 people who didn't trust her most, Togami, Hagakure, and Toko, to tell her, oh, I want to meet you at such and such time. I want to explain some things. And so Toko comes early. She hides in the locker. Then Sakura comes in. Hagakure comes in. Hagakure talks with her for a bit. Then it's really silent. Then he freaks out and attacks her with one of the Monokuma bottles. And she's just sort of, I guess, staggered for a bit. And then he writes in blood on a magazine there, Toko's name, to try and do the dying message to frame her.
Yeah.
And leaves that there. And then he quickly runs. And so after that, Toko gets out of the locker because she sees what's happened, sees the magazine, hides that, and then Sakura pops up behind her. She faints, wakes up as Genocide Jack, and then attacks Sakura with another Monokuma bottle, and then ends up getting out as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, I believe she drinks the poison.
Mm-hmm.
From that was disguised as she just drinks the poison, and that was was that another bottle, or did Asahina get rid of that? I forget.
I think she had it.
Okay. And then then her last act is stealing the room with the chair, and then drinking the poison.
And telling Hina what happened or what.
Okay. I honestly, there are a lot of details in these cases that you almost you forget some of them, I think.
No. Honestly, they're throwing so much information at you at some points in this game that it's hard to remember the details. But I really loved how that whole case went down. I'll admit, I didn't think that she killed herself at first.
That was probably the only case where we're going in. I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, that was like that for me too, because there was so much of the evidence conflicted with itself. Like how did someone sneak out of the locker when they weren't lurking or something? Like I thought this is really strange, especially when because the whole thing was that Sakura wanted to meet with Byakuya, Toko, and God, I'm mean names.
Hagakure,
yeah. And then, it all went to hell, and she just decided to end it.
Oh yeah, and there is, I think, PK Gaming, since we're doing live stream, brought up in chat the suicide letter that Asahina gets.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
The fake one, I believe.
Yeah, that Monokuma writes that one.
Yeah, the one that Monokuma wrote, because she didn't see the real one, about my back is to the wall, I'm ending it.
I really like that they didn't go with the whole she felt bad so she killed herself kind of thing.
Yeah, I think they sort of... It's interesting how they throw the fake one at you to sort of be like, oh, that's really awful, and then you end up hearing about the real one. Yeah,
Monokuma just flat out says, are you sure that's how... You just interpreted it that way.
Yeah, it's just, Monokuma's a jerk.
Yeah, he was a little fuckhead the whole game, and that...
Oh, he is such a good troll. Oh, man.
You mean she? But
it's a spoilercast, so I should say yes. She is a good troll. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a pretty wild case though, because there was a point where during the actual trial, I was just like, I don't know where to go with this.
Yeah, I think when Hina ends up admitting, I was like I sort of ended up thinking for a little bit, yeah, maybe Asahina did this. I could sort of see this in a weird way.
Mm-hmm. I thought she did do it. Like I said, I thought it was a whole. She was play for lack of a better word, playing Sakura, and yeah.
My thoughts were more she was trying to put her friend out of her misery.
You two and talking over each other.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, sir.
It's all right. It's all right. But go ahead. What were you saying?
What was you saying?
You go ahead. Both of you, one at a time.
Okay.
Go for it.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that I thought that Hina was in on it the whole time. I figured she was. I always thought Sakura had killed herself. I could see no other outcome after the poison. I figured she either killed herself and Hina was in on it, or she killed herself and Hina was not in on it. But at no real point did I really think that Hina was the killer. Although I admit they try real hard to convince you to get you to think that it's her, with the whole being accusatory for basically the whole trial until she gets called out.
Yeah, I mean, I had thought Asahina was the killer mostly because I thought she was trying to help, her. Obviously, I had thought that maybe Sakura is upset from this sort of betrayal that she both had to give to her fellow classmates, and that was she experienced, and so she's helping put her out of her misery or something like that.
Well, there was definitely, to a degree, at a point you just knew that they were working together for whatever gain. Sakura's ultimate goal was just to throw Monokuma off and, try and absolve everyone else of, what was her? God, I'm totally blanking right now. Yeah, but yeah. Never mind. I don't know where I was going with that.
You mean like she's trying to stop the murders by getting herself out?
Yeah. Well, yeah, she's trying to dissolve the distrust between the three, between Byakuya, Toko, and Hina, and it was great. I wasn't really sure what to think of Sakura when she's first introduced in the game, because I thought, okay, she's the ultimate fighter or the ultimate martial artist, and there is kind of this moment where I was thinking she's probably going to get murdered just because you would never, no one would be able to murder her or take her in a physical confrontation, but I guess that never does happen, because even at one point Monokuma says yeah, she was a big problem because I couldn't even kill her when I wanted to.
Yeah, that just shows how strong she is.
Yeah, he's Monica was I tried, and whoever the black can did me a big favor by killing her, even though she killed herself. But
yeah.
Chapter 4 was so good, though.
Chapter 4 was great, and then Asahina's reasoning for sort of betraying the group by saying that she did it, of the whole you guys brought her to this, you guys made her kill herself, so we're all going down together. It's just that really just hits you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great.
I really wish they had called her on that a little bit more. I thought that was great. That was ridiculously selfish. I would have. I thought it was weird that after the trial they just immediately back to being buddy, and nobody kind of got in her face about that, because that wasn't actually that cool.
No,
yeah, I get that. But I think her reasoning as to why she did that as a character type of thing was great. But yeah, after the fact, it's that is.
It's
yeah,
cool.
you almost
I understand. It's cool. I get the passion, and I know that you feel bad and everything. But they didn't. Nobody had it out for her to the point that for Sakura, to the point that they went after her. So just in general, just the selfishness of it all is just whoa. Especially for that character, I think she should have got checked on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, absolutely. Whether it was for the best or not. It's pretty fucked up, because Hina basically just wanted everyone to die.
It's just a really jarring transition that she says all that, and right after that, they're back in the dining hall, and they're buddy, and it's wait, did you guys? Hina just almost totally just got us totally incinerated or whatever twisted
But it's
thing
cool, guys. They're all a team
Junko
now.
had planned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all a team.
we've all been united now. Never mind that one of our own just intentionally tried to screw the pooch on the whole trial and get us all slaughtered.
Because they could have played off that too. Why? I could see Byakuya saying I don't trust you. Why the fuck should I trust you at all?
Yeah.
And it would have been perfectly in character for Byakuya to say, after what you just said in the past trial, you think I'm going to go anywhere with you? You're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she was.
I think that in a sense, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think that in a sense, people understood, they kind of sympathized with her because of the fake suicide note that Monokuma made. If it wasn't for that, if Sakura just wrote the suicide note herself and then he had tried to pull that, then yeah, I think that everyone would get up for her blood. But since Monokuma basically fixed the results with a suicide note, and people even call out on that and say, yeah, you tampered with evidence, it's not even fair. They were kind of more united against a greater foe.
Yeah.
So, I think that his influence kind of changed the meaning of her actions.
Well, Monokuma changes the game constantly.
Yeah, what he ends up doing.
Monokuma gets to do whatever he likes, and he makes that apparent.
With
constantly.
what Monokuma does with the suicide letter, I think that sort of ends up uniting the group by having the fake one, and then the real one is revealed. I think that's the big thing in uniting the group as a whole against Monokuma.
Exactly. But then we come to... Is that all we want to touch on 4? Does anyone want to say anything?
I thought the execution
what about the
was great because it's sort of just he brings in the special guest, and the music is sort of this simple music box thing, and then goes into this heavy metalish guitar as the excavator is just smashing into a ball.
I got Chekhov's gun.
I gotta say, just so we can diverge a little bit for a brief tangent on going through the game's plot. God, the music that plays when someone is found as the Blackened is so creepy. The 16-bit track that plays that.
The execution music, my favorite in the game. If we're going on music, that and the Monokuma theme, those are the two best types of tracks. I think
most people's is the Monokuma theme, and I think it's mine too.
I don't get why they left off the CD.
Reminds me of
That's enraging to me.
What does it remind you of, Keats?
Oh, it reminds me of another game, Feel the Magic. DS, because it sounds like it came right from that.
Oh,
And that's a good thing. It sounds a good game. So.
Yeah, the composer. I looked him up, and he did like No More Heroes and like
really?
some stuff for Capcom. I think he works at Tango now, like Shinji Mikami Studio.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's doing Evil Within now, and actually in the credits of the game, because I guess they have to credit his whatever place he works officially since he did the music. So the Tango Gameworks is in the credits of DR. So
I didn't
cool.
even notice that. That's
I
cool.
didn't. I haven't.
Yeah, it's towards the end of the credits. They mention Tango. Yeah.
Interesting, but that I love that Monokuma's like, yeah, I knew about Alter Ego the whole time.
Yeah, that just really shows you like sort of how powerless the group is.
Oh, we're skipping a lot of the stuff in between
It's
because
a spoiler cast. People know this.
No. I mean, like, but it's hard to. It's stuff I want to touch on,
Oh,
like
okay.
the whole, Alter Ego is looking at the files to try to figure out who
Right.
on the laptop to figure out who the mastermind is, and it's a man in his 30s. I think it's the headmaster.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
And he's somewhere in
And-
the school, stuff like that.
I really like those little teases at the end of each chapter. That and like the mole and things like that in chapter 2. But should we just jump right on to chapter 5?
Can we rewind right to the beginning for a second?
Sure.
When the game starts, there's an execution, kind of like the intro movie, where Jew gets launched in that rocket and comes out as a skeleton.
Yeah.
Is that the headmaster?
Yeah.
I do believe that is supposed to be the
that is
headmaster, and those are the bones.
when you end up finding the bones in the prison box
Yeah.
later.
It didn't click until I
man.
started watching the anime yesterday.
Oh.
I love how they start with the execution. Just like right off the bat, you start up the game, and just right there you get the blast off. I think that's really just. It makes you really confused from the get go. I think.
Yeah.
I figured it was just more of a here's what's to come kind of thing. It wasn't actually part of the story until it didn't click that it was actually a part of the thing until the end when Junko's execution was going, and that's included in it.
Oh yeah.
That's when I realized that's probably important.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever tell you what that guy's name is? Kyoko's father?
Jin
What is his
Kirigiri.
Yeah.
name? Okay, cool.
Like I think it's like glossed over sort of.
Mm-hmm. So, chapter 5. Who wants to take the helm for this one?
Chapter 5 was my favorite.
Go for it then.
Okay, so chapter 5. That's at the point. That's right after they've done, after Sakura's gone and everything, and that's when Kyoko disappears. Kyoko and who else disappears? It's Kyoko and one of the characters that disappears, and then they come to the
Makoto, isn't it?
I think
it's
Makoto.
Who am I thinking?
I want to say it's Togami maybe.
Yes, Tagami. Yes.
Okay, there we go. It's Tagami. So Kyoko and Tagami disappear. They explore like the fifth floor of the school and everything, and obviously they find the body. Once they get to the what was that? The place with the barn and the chickens. and stuff. What was it?
The
Fifth
garden,
floor.
Something like that.
It's the 5th floor, but it's
Well,
like a garden place. Yeah, I forget what it's called.
But first-
but it's like
but
a
first-
garden place.
But first, you get attacked by El Fuerte again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Man, a lot of stuff happens in it. Maybe I shouldn't recap it. There's a lot of stuff that I think
No,
I think
there's
that
a lot of stuff
probably
that happens in
knows
all
it
these
better.
chapters.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I'll hit the wiki.
We don't hate every point. It's
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So I guess to make a long story short, then they find the body and they're trying to eliminate who the possible suspects are. You collect all the evidence and it's a body that's familiar. So there's debate about whether it's Mukuro or they're trying to figure out who it is. They think it might be Kyoko, but then Kyoko like throws you off, and the trial is like a battle of wits between Makoto and Kyoko and Miyaki is sort of like a three-way.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, I guess the biggest moment is you get to the end, which is I think this moment is where my favorite stretch of the game starts when they. Huh?
No, keep it. Just we should discuss a little bit what happened before we go to the very end.
That's what I was saying. I think I'm the bad person to do this recap. I don't remember a lot of the details.
Okay, well, I remember when Echo. I remember when I was going through it. It's funny because we said Genocide Jack or Genocide Jill. We never thought that she was going to be the killer, but at one point I did actually think it was Toko. Like the whole they disassemble, they find Monokuma like completely like inert, and they start disassembling him, and they find the bomb, and then Genocide Jack is the one that finds the corpse, and then, well, technically it's Toko, but and then she knows about the bomb, and the bomb is what goes off when Genocide Jill, cuts up or tries to take off the luchador mask. And so yeah, honestly, I did think it was Toko at one point.
I totally thought that Toko killed her and then used the bomb that they found in Monokuma and to try to disguise the fact that it was her. It seems like Toko might do something. It seems like Toko would think that that's genius, and because I think it's kind of a dumb move actually, but I think she would think that that was kind of genius and do that. So I definitely, to start at least, I was like, this kind of has Toko written all over it. Not Jill specifically, but Toko kind of sounds like her.
I mean, looking back, it doesn't make sense because Toko can't handle blood, but at any sort. I mean, at one point they butcher a chicken to cover it up, right?
Yeah, that's what Junko does. She kills the chicken to have the blood on the robe or whatever it is.
How fucked does Ishida do? Come, desecrate her sister's corpse after fucking her over, right? Jesus.
Best character.
Mm-hmm. But this one, it's not Kyoko leading up because it would be like, okay, you were gone for a long time. That again, that's an obvious signifier that someone's a killer, right? So you're like, this game is not going to be that obvious. But then when you get to the trial and she's very aggressive and she's not Obi-Wan anymore. She's not helping you. She's like, can you prove that? Why do the sprinklers coming on at this time mean anything? That someone could have put a tarp up. You found a tarp, right? And you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah. It really shows kind of a dramatic personality change in a way of how she goes from sort of helping you to suddenly just being really aggressive in how the trial is going.
And especially when you already know this game is not going to favor your favorite character. Not people aren't going to, anyone can betray anyone. And, there was a point where I did think wow, Kyoko really... Did Kyoko do this?
Yeah, I think they also teased for a while that Kyoko could have been the body because she's the only one missing for the long time.
Oh yeah, they do tease that.
They because at that point Makoto is the only one I believe who knows about Mukuro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, there are things that kind of give it away, like the fake nails and whatnot.
The real giveaways are the nails, the nails, that skin tone, and those boots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those boots are it for sure.
I mean, and that the game wouldn't just kill her off that way. You don't see it or anything. That would be just strange. But I think 5 was my favorite just because of. First of all, I love it when you pursue the Toko's lie and you get the what if ending. That was so funny.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Hagakure is right 20% of the time.
Hina just becomes a baby factory. And for all the other guys,
randomly missing.
Oh yeah! Oh man, that ending. That is one of the greatest trolls.
It's great.
Wow, that ending. Oh man.
Coco was apparently dead.
Yeah, I know what happened to her.
Foggy was just there with a pit drawer.
Yeah, I know. There's no explanation. Hina just has 4, a kid with each of the guys there. It's like, Jesus Christ.
It's really hilarious. I think it sort of shows this sort of how good they can do with the humor.
Yeah, it was really funny. Even the music that comes up is that ding, 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 ding. It's just this. It's so fucked up, but it's hilarious.
It's
the worst part about.
Go ahead, Keats.
Sorry.
Oh, in that chapter 2, and they all just kind of forgot about Toko after she blew up.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That.
You're not a what? Sorry.
So I laughed pretty hard at that.
Yeah, you see her flying away.
Because I forgot all about her too.
Yeah, that's right. It's no one cares about Toko. Not at all. Not even.
I love Toko. She's my favorite character.
I mean, the characters in the game didn't. But,
even I forgot about her.
Yeah,
that says something.
Well, it's because they almost got blowed up. But something I want to bring up is, I thought that they were going to do something with the plant. The man-eating plant?
Flower?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely thought somebody's body would get disposed in there, and then there'd be a piece of clothing again or something like that. I definitely thought that was a weird thing to have in the school.
Mm-hmm. It was very...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that was something they had set up just to kind of throw you off.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, I honestly never thought too much about it because it just sort of seemed in a way, it seems sort of impractical as to how you would include that in a murder plot. Because it's so large, how is a body going to get up there?
and someone's gonna have to toss it up there.
Yeah, Sakura's gone. You can't toss a body up there.
Something I can't wait to play through the whole game again, but like one thing I really like about that chapter is they, not to get right to the end, but like they allude to, there's a nice little hint as to what's actually going on with the whole you find Mondo's like pickaxe or whatever.
Oh yeah, the crazy diamond one.
Mm-hmm. I really like that because it's just like crazy diamond. That was on Mondo's jacket, right? And like I didn't really think too much of it at the time because I'm like, well, he's dead, right?
I saw that item before they actually like referenced in the dialogue, looking at it, and I thought to myself, I was like, crazy diamond. Those words that seems like familiar. And then they brought it up later, and I was like, yeah, okay. I thought I'd read that before somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, chapter. Like I went off on a tangent, but I felt so bad for I'm totally gonna admit it because it was my favorite character, but I was almost at like turning off the Vita and redoing the case when I said Kyoko to her death. I'm like, I wasn't supposed to do that, was I?
I felt so. Oh man, that moment. That was that all caps post that I had in the OT that I posted at that one night was like right after I saw that Kyoko ending and like the hilarious fake ending that you get, because I was like, oh my god, what a troll. But I was like, oh no, what have I done? What have I done? I've ruined the game. What have I done?
Yeah, it was pretty great. And then when you come back and you still feel. It still feels like not right because like you basically take the fall for her, and that was the first trial where it really didn't feel fair, where it was just like, okay, I don't think anyone killed anyone here. I don't think any of us did anything bad. And then Monokuma's like, Makoto's the blackened.
We're out of time.
Like, yeah, and everyone's like, you're like, you all voted for me, and they're like, yeah, sorry, and then. Kyoko says, like, I don't expect you to forgive me. And then it's like, well. And you know what I thought was going to happen? When I thought Makoto was going to die, and then you were going to Kyoko was going to become the player character.
I think it's like what a lot of people sort of think. Because I've heard that.
Did anyone expect Alter Ego to come back into play? Did anyone expect that at all?
No.
In a way, I kind of feel it's like a little cheap in a way, but at the same time, you go through like, no, like, yeah, save him. Like, save Negi. Like, come on. Like, I don't want him to die. I'm him.
Yeah, that was, it was that whole sequence, that whole latter part of the chapter really like cemented how much I loved that game or this game, and that was by far my favorite.
Snake Eater part.
Yeah, for sure.
Snake Eater parts. Oh, you're talking about
the long ladder.
Yeah. Yes, that's
honestly the execution scenes, and then what happens when you're in the trash can with Kyoko and on the ladder, and then she gives you, which from a writing standpoint is like, hey, here's her whole backstory in one go. Here you go. It's like, wow, guys, this is kind of a lot. But I mean,
I should clarify. I meant latter part of the chapter, not the latter part.
Oh man, we are just on it with the jokes.
Geez, I can't.
The execution scenes, and then the super scenes, and then the ladder, and getting Kyoko's backstory. That is actually like my favorite stretch of the game. I really felt like those moments really like made her character. Maybe it was having her almost die, and then getting her backstory, which I totally think is like awesome, and I sympathize with. Maybe that was what really finally cemented her as my favorite character. Because before that, I thought she was super cool, and I figured there was more to her. Because they progress her character in little ways as she opens up to Makoto and gets mad at him, and like I said, they struggle with trust and stuff throughout the whole game, and then in that moment they really cement her as like, yeah, there's really something going on here. She's like a superhero in the courtroom, but really she's a human being just like Makoto and everybody else is here. She's just another person.
Yeah, I love God, I totally lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Scrafty. Were you saying something, Scrafty?
My favorite part about Chapter 5 was the entirely... Yes, sorry, can you hear me?
No, you're lagging. So he started... Okay.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Is it done?
Go ahead.
Okay, so my favorite part of Chapter 5 was the entirely pointless interlude with Hagakure involving the beef burger.
Hold on 1 second. You're lagging really bad. Am I the only one hearing this?
I mean, I'm hearing off and on, basically.
I hear too, yeah.
It's doing the speed up, slow down thing. He's like, my favorite part was, and then but fucking Microsoft and their Skype program. But okay, try it again, Scrappy.
My favorite part of Chapter 5 was the entirely pointless interlude with Hagakure and the 100% beef burger.
Oh, okay, yeah, that
Or
was
get
really
abducted
funny.
by aliens, yeah.
The
That
burger
made
gets
me like
abducted.
laugh out loud.
Yeah.
I haven't had
Yeah.
that happen with a lot of games, but that part was just great.
I honestly like this is the funniest game I've ever played. Something I praised in my review was there's very few genuinely funny games, more so than even games, because like there's this whole discussion now about games being really dramatic or having truly great characters. We're talking about the narrative bar being raised, especially in the past year with like games like The Last of Us or whatever. But they're more so than even games that'll make you evoke an emotional response, like sadness or whatever. Something that's a genuinely funny game, I can think of almost none. Like before this, the game that I think made me laugh the most was Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and that's because of the jank. It wasn't because of they were intentionally trying to be funny, but there were so many points in this game where I was actually laughing out loud. Like that's like the what if ending. I was like, what? This is so fucked up.
I think the important point about it is that despite how like dark and like serious this can be in a narrative, it's still funny. Like that's the thing that I really like about it.
Oh no, it comes around like I said, there are so many moments where I felt like so awful or like everything about this is so depressing, like especially the chapter 2 conclusion, just everything there.
But they managed to do really good to inject humor in it without it feeling too forced most of the time.
I don't know.
I think that's the thing that really makes it is that it's funny, but it's like because for me, I can still count. Doing comedy in games is so hard. I can still count the games that I genuinely think are funny, like on my hands.
Yeah, I'd say on my first hand. I can't even think of any. Like what? I guess some people like to say Saints Row, but that one never quite did it for me. But yeah, so I thought that was maybe even the biggest feat of the game was just how funny it was and how it balanced. It still had a great story. And it could be dramatic at the same time.
And darkly funny because it's like so if we establish it's one of the very few like genuinely really 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 funny games, and in my mind I'm thinking of probably like less than 7 when I think of games that I played that I generally think are funny. But then it's like darkly funny. It's like a black comedy. Like how many of those do you have in games, like legitimate black comedies?
It kind of reminded me of like, maybe this is a bit much, but it kind of reminded me of like a Tarantino movie.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah, I can totally see that. I didn't think of it until now, but yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah, sure.
But so
I can just imagine like a bunch of the writers sitting around in a room going, okay, how do we kill off Mondo? And then they'll just sit in thought, and then one of them just goes, what if we turn him to butter?
Well,
like, I really want to see the thought process behind this game because like some of the ideas are so out there and bizarre.
Oh, it's definitely out there. It's very much its own flavor. That's why I really want to try the second one, just because I hear that it's better in like every way.
I'll just say, I think I've said it already, but if you like the first one, you will love the second one 10 times more, without a doubt. The highs in the second one are just so much higher. It is such a better game story-wise, I think.
But before we go to like conclusions or anything, we got another chapter to go. And again, one of my this is gonna sound so dumb, but I think everyone loves the like ramen on Kyoko, right?
Oh yes.
Yes, that is my favorite. That is there's something I don't know what it is quite about that, but yes, that moment with those lines and that Sprite,
it's silly.
It really did it for me. It's great.
Yeah, it was really fun, especially because they don't acknowledge it for like a huge portion of the conversation. Like, wash your hair, goddammit. But it was so great. So, any more thoughts on Chapter 5, or should we go into the final bit?
Chapter 5 is my favorite chapter. I think it is ultimately it's the most harrowing chapter of the game. I think it's a really, really awesome climax before you go into the final chapter. Just everything they do there, it would just totally, totally affected me. Such highs. Yeah, I love that chapter. I thought it was great.
And then Chapter 6 is this is like the fucking like David Lynch chapter, but it gets so fucking crazy.
Man, it does. That's when the game just truly ramps
totally
up.
Lynch.
Take it one at a time, guys.
Sorry,
but it's all right. It happens. But who wants to recap 6 a bit, or at least
everything is nuts.
I can do this one.
You go for it. I think you're lagging
Chapter
again.
6.
You're lagging
again.
Yeah. Do you want to go for it, Smed?
Sure.
What was that?
Do Do you want to recap this one?
I was just saying my recap for chapter 6 is everything is just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I know
and
so
exposition and craziness. That is chapter 6.
You know what? Fuck it. I'll do it. I'll do a terrible job, but I'll do it. You climb up the ladder with Kyoko, and you get her entire backstory, and you get that she has more invested in this than just, she doesn't want to just get out. She intentionally got into Hope's Peak, and she wanted to solve the mystery, and she wanted to find her father and cut ties with him because he abandoned her and all that. And he's like, so what are we going to do? Makoto's like, what are we going to do when we get to the top? Isn't Monokuma going to be pissed? And he's like, no, because in the last case, Monokuma showed a moment of weakness, and you didn't do anything wrong, and he can't just kill someone, flat out. I think that's what she says. He can't just kill someone based on nothing.
I think it's sort of like he can't just kill someone without following the rules or something like that.
Also, fuck you, Cool Mike. But yeah, that was I really loved that moment just because you go right up to him and you're just like the characters. You're like, okay, are we gonna be able to call his bluff? I mean, like that it's not gonna just end there. But you never know with Monokuma, where he's just like, so we're gonna lay it all on the line. One final chapter. We're gonna do a redo of the trial, and yeah, I really loved that whole dialogue between Monokuma and Kyoko there.
Oh yeah, it's like, you have to do this because otherwise your whole plan is for naught, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they constantly point out the mastermind. I can't remember. It's at that point Kyoko doesn't believe that the mastermind is the headmaster, right?
No.
Yeah,
I don't think she believes that for most of the time.
Yeah, even the prior chapter, I think they allude to. It's like, okay, this is probably someone else.
Yeah, I think that's when they start to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. So at that point, the deal is that they have to solve every mystery of the school, or at least the big ones. But so Monokuma opens up the entire school to them, which means they can go to the biolab, the second floor dorms. Is it the old dorms? Yeah.
And the data center.
And I have to say, there's a really great reference to the original Resident Evil in the biolab. That I can't remember which character says it, but it's like I don't know, it's Yasuhiro.
Yeah, I remember. I think he
Tyrant. I was like, wow, that is a really just like almost like not really brazen, but I was like, wow, they just went for it. He just straight up just mentioned Tyrant. Okay, cool.
Well, yeah, they mentioned he's like, if this was a cliche horror game, it would there would be like a big monster or a tyrant. Like they even capitalized Tyrant. So it's if you ever played Resident Evil, the final boss of that game is a big monster called the Tyrant. And so yeah, that was that game is just full of really great references. And what I understand is that actually a lot of them are in the original Japanese.
Nisa Marichan is very good at delivering references like that.
Well, like even the Hina, when she says she wants to like meet Jason Statham, like apparently that's originally
that's in the Japanese version.
It's like, it's like what Ron said on Twitter. It's like the weebs out there stand a chance. She set the bar too high. But
did you guys catch that? We didn't even talk about at some point before we end this. I think we all have to like go around and talk about how great Monokuma is in general.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch the Jennifer Lopez reference in one of the Monokuma theater segments?
No, I'm not sure I did.
He doesn't mention her by name, but I think it's in chapter 3 because it makes sense if you kind of think about Celeste's like character arc. He says something like, "Oh, there was an actress who like she started as a backup dancer on a sketch comedy show."
Oh, okay, now I remember that. Oh, that
right?
was an actual reference?
To me, that really sounds like a reference to J-Lo, because that's her thing. She was a backup dancer on In Living Color, and then she became a singer. He says, she's a singer, but who started as like a backup dancer on a sketch comedy show, and then she retires and marries a third-rate actor, which is obviously Mark Anthony. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's who they're talking about. Yeah.
That one would have I know nothing about J-Lo, so that one went right over my head.
Yeah, I thought that was just sort of him goofing around to more or less.
Can one of you guys explain the supposed Dragon Quest reference that's in there?
Is there a Dragon Quest reference in there?
Yeah, I can do it. Okay, apparently you're the one that tweeted about it. Yeah, there you go.
So when Junko first reveals herself as the mastermind, she offers to make everyone in the room her disciples and says that she'll give them half the land as reward. And that's a reference to the first Dragon Quest, where the king sends you on a quest to rescue the princess, and that's what he offers you as his reward. And additionally, she's wearing the King Slime's crown whenever she's in her monarch persona.
Wow. So we should probably jump back to the final piece. So we'll set up.
Sorry about that. My bad.
No. I went on the tangent with Tyrant because I still couldn't believe Yasuhiro about fucking Tyrant. But I also there was a lot of really blatant references, but they made me laugh. Like when Monokuma pops up and said, "I stole it," and it's obviously a Lord of the Rings reference. But he straight up says "my precious," but referring to Kyoko stealing the headmaster's key. But no, it's Monokuma key.
The secret tool, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, well, as you're exploring, you discover that one something's awry because the Monokuma calls everyone to the gym. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff to cover in this chapter, but Monokuma. Let's just go on the big ones. Monokuma calls everyone to the gym, and they all kind of go there, I guess, at their own times. I think it's Yasuhiro and Hina go at their own times, and Kyoko does as well. No, Kyoko doesn't go. And then you go, and he reveals that all these pictures, throughout the game, you've been finding pictures of your friends or the people that died, and they look happy and whatnot. And I hate, maybe it was because I watched Madoka the fucking week before, but no, I'm joking. But I thought that it was going to get into fucking multiverse shit or something, when it was oh yeah, this is like a parallel timeline. This is would Ken Levine write this game too? But yeah, I thought that's what they were going with that. It's oh, this is actually you're all fine in a different timeline or some bullshit. But
there's always a bear, a good luck, and a school.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. I guess that's true, but yeah, it came together pretty well. That I've kind of lost my train of thought now, but.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true of most of these anime games. But honestly, from that first picture with Mondo and Chihiro and who's that, Leon, I was like, okay, it was like, okay, anime doesn't really usually do the multiverse thing. So I thought, okay, obviously Amnesia's at play. I hope they make good use of it. I think they did ultimately make good use of it. But yeah, to start, I was like, okay, obviously some sort of Amnesia's at play. They've probably all been to this school before, something or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Monokuma reveals that these pictures are all real, and you know that they're not fake, because that would just be dumb, where it was yeah, he photoshopped them. Actually, that's what random tangent. Is the Photoshop comment by Junko, the fake Junko, is that in the original Japanese too?
Yeah, well, it doesn't explicitly say Photoshop, it just says photo editing and junk, but yeah, the comment's there.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, so they get to the trial, and I think Kyoko says that, everyone doesn't trust each other because they all think that they're lying to each other. That was what Monokuma was trying to do, and they're trying to explain or deceive them. And you quickly notice, I think it is Kyoko who points it out, there's something wrong with all these pictures. And it wasn't until, I believe it's the class photo you have where Taka's arm, he's saluting and he's covering up Junko's face. Yeah. And then I remembered Ron's icon, which is a total spoiler.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh fuck, it's Junko.
I just want to apologize to everyone. I want to apologize to you. I want to apologize to anyone who's on GAF and potentially thought, when I had Junko as my Twitter avatar, which I switched to Kyoko and then I went back to Junko because I decided that she is my waifu again. I purposely picked one that would not spoil that plot twist like I did on GAF. I didn't even notice the hairpin thing until Heaven Smiley pointed it out in a post that I did not respond to because I did not want to draw attention to the fact that he was pointing it out and potentially ruin it for more people. So that's why I didn't get back to you. I wasn't being a jerk. I just didn't want to make the problem even worse.
No,
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's Tumblr art. You could just pass that off.
The avatar is you wouldn't really notice it unless you actually knew what you were looking for.
Yeah, that's what, I gotta say.
Yeah.
People jump on people's asses about spoilers for this game, and I understand. But half the time, when someone jumps on a spoiler, people wouldn't even notice if they didn't point it out. You know,
it's like there was just last night on Gab, somebody posted a comment in a spoiler, and and then they posted a non-spoilered sentence that referenced what was in the comment, and it's like, why did you? It was about Dangan Ronpa 2, which is like it just shouldn't have even been in the thread, but it's like stuff like that. Like, don't even. It's like there's so much stuff in this game that's a spoiler, but it requires context. It's the type of thing that sits right under your nose, and you don't know it's a spoiler unless you have context. So don't tell somebody, "Oh yeah, that's a spoiler." I mean, well, now they're expecting something. I mean, now that's officially now there's a facet of Dangan Ronpa 2 that's officially ruined for me because someone said, "Hey, this is a spoiler right here." It's like, well, thanks. Now I'm expecting something.
Well, that's actually really funny because Cool Mike says in the comments that he wanted to tell you, but that would have been a spoiler. Like he wanted to tell you to change your icon. But I mean, no, that wasn't bad because like at that point it's like, okay, her face is covered up in every picture because at one of the pictures at the pool and she's getting water splashed on her face. You can't see her face. Another one there at the track field, she's turned. There's another picture where they're all in the classroom and her back's to the camera. And then finally. The one that really gave it away was like Taka's arm is covering her face.
Yeah,
and that's the one they give Makoto, right?
Yeah,
I caught onto that as soon as I saw it. It's a little like his arm. It's a little blatant, because especially when you consider the fact that it's Taka. He's not going to do that to somebody on purpose. So.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly didn't even look at the picture close enough. I was just like, I thought it was going to get into the multiverse or something. Like in this reality, you were all fine. But I forgot to bring up in the earlier chapter, Kyoko gives you the tape from the headmaster's office, and it's hard to recap everything in the final two chapters. And then they see that every student agreed to be there. And agreed to forget what had happened. Well, they didn't agree to that part, but they agreed to be locked in the school forever. But yeah, so yeah, that the final chapter was a ride. What did you guys think of it?
I mean, that would probably be my favorite with Chapter 4. I think Chapter 6 is a special case because obviously it's the final case. But yeah, it's great.
I thought Chapter 6 delivered. I thought apart from the overly long monologue about how I did it all for despair, it was so you would feel despair, the ultimate despair, because that's my life's work, despair. I was born in despair, molded by despair. Other than all that very Danish despair stuff that doesn't really mean anything, I thought that it was a good chapter. I thought that Junko's reveal was definitely successful because upon sight, I was just like, oh God, I can't stand this person. Everything that you put us through, everything you put us through. This is your attitude. This is your response. Just absolutely terrible. I could not stand the sight of her, and I like the fact that as the game ends, it doesn't. When it does end, I think they kind of copped out on the tragedy stuff. They did a whole lot to act like they were going to. The Genocide Jill's memory, because we didn't cover this, but there's a part during Chapter 6 where Genocide Jill says that, she never forgets anything. She says Toko might forget it, but she's going to remember it. So they kind of see that as a thing. Like, the minute she mentioned that, I said to myself, okay, so she's going to know. That's going to come out in the trial, and she's going to know, and she's going to break it down and, in a wacky way, tell us exactly what it was that happened with the tragedy. And then they get there, and they don't do that, and I thought that was kind of an odd cop-out, because you guys made it out to be like you were going to say what the tragedy was, but the writers, at least at this point, I don't know what happens in DR2, but at least in the first game, you guys clearly don't have a definitive thing for what the tragedy is. So I thought that kind of disappointed me. But other than that, all the other mysteries that don't get solved by Chapter 6, I really like that those loose ends are there. I don't know. I think it's a really hard balance to strike, but I think they did a really good job of answering a lot of the immediate questions that you need to be satisfied, while still leaving you with a lot to have going forward. Because there's a lot about how that story starts that we don't know.
No, there was, just to acknowledge what PK saying in the chat. There was never a moment where I wanted there to be some sort of you go back and save the world kind of thing. The only problem I had really with Chapter 6 is it got very again, the whole hope versus despair thing I think went on for a little too long.
Really beat you over the head with that a lot.
It's yeah, and there's also again, I mentioned it before. I think that they could have shown, I didn't need to be told that Junko was a terrible person. I didn't need, actions speak louder than words. I didn't need to know that she was molded by despair like Bane. But there was, the actual tragedy itself, I was like, what the fuck is this? Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'll say I'm not going to say anything because obviously I'm a big proponent of experiencing a Dangan Ronpa sort of, I guess, raw in a way, like just all in. But there definitely are things that once you experience two, things that are said in one will sort of make sense.
Yeah. Oh no, I get that they explain it after the fact. I mean,
it's sort of not like they have sort of plans already. Like they had plans already by that time that become apparent.
And I think that's what highlights it is the fact that from playing the game, this game is so focused on details. It reminds me of like a good mystery story. Like that's the thing I always tell people I like about David Fincher's like thriller films is that they're so focused on the details. And this game and its mystery is also so very focused on the details and expecting you to remember like the littlest of things and trials and stuff. So you know that these guys are taking care in what they're doing, and they are about the minutia. I think that's what makes the tragedy stick out like a sore thumb. Because when they get to that part, I was totally expecting this explicit thing as far as what happens, and they take 5 lines and like 3 pieces of art and completely gloss over it, and it's like, oh,
personally, I think that's what makes it work best.
I guess we'll get back to that in the sequel then.
Mm-hmm. By knowing so little and by seeing the ridiculous images of like Monokuma Sphinx and Monokuma masks on people just rioting and stuff like that, I think that just really just sort of like brings it home and just sort of like makes you just
it definitely makes it a fun moment. It definitely makes it a fun moment in terms of like how crazy the game is and how like just maniacal like Monokuma is. It's like it's Monokuma. It's like, hey, guess what? Not only is Monokuma evil and cute, he's also ubiquitous. Mm-hmm. So how about that? So in that regard, it's pretty great. But I felt like at that point, I just felt like they had really like wound me up to be like, yeah, you've been so curious this whole time. Now we're gonna finally break it down to you and tell you what's going on again. Kind of like BioShock Infinite.
It was less like that. I would say I compare it more to like a Damon Lindelof ending, like in Lost, where it's like they give you like hints as to what they might be getting at, but they never quite explain it. And like you say, they do in other media, so I'll hold you, or I believe you. But it definitely kind of felt, I don't know, it was just strange. Like I was like, okay, it's the apocalypse, and like all these students are actually gathered here because they're going to be like the next world leaders, and they're rebuilding it. I like that part, or they may lead to rebuilding it and stopping Monokuma, or Junko. No, I have to clarify something. I'll admit that I wasn't too sure on this. Did they say is it? You can say, Smed, if this is a spoiler.
Okay.
Was it Junko that started the apocalypse? Was it, or was she just a part of it, or was she?
She was the mastermind behind it. Yeah.
Okay.
Her and Mukuro were, yeah.
Okay. Fair.
Without saying it explicitly, it seems like the ultimate despair, which would be Junko and her sister. It seems like they were probably sort of like an anarchist group, and they started it that way.
Yeah. Well, we forgot to mention
that's how I read it.
We got to mention the body in the previous chapter was Junko's sister. I always forget her name. One of those characters. Mukuro
Ikasaba, the ultimate despair.
Yeah, the mercenary. But I love that she like has like a little bit of contempt for her sister. Yeah, it was totally photoshopped. But like when she's talking about how she doesn't look like her picture. But
that comment is so much. With that perspective, that comment is so much better.
Yeah, I got. But
my question is, how did they get the funding to build a giant Monokuma mecha? Like, even with being a famous fashionista, you shouldn't have that much money or technology in 2010.
Hand wave it.
You're looking too much into that part. like how does like Monokuma take over the whole world? And like there's like dudes wearing Monokuma masks and whatnot.
Even 2 doesn't sufficiently explain some of that stuff. I'll say, like the giant Monokuma just smashing buildings.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean that stuff you have to hand wave a bit, I think.
That kind of surprises me because I noticed Makoto makes it a point in a lot of moments to say, like, you know, to mention like the money that the scheme would require, the technology that she has on hand. Like in multiple moments he says like, who could pull something off like this? So I definitely thought the idea of like who would actually be able to, like, where you would get the capital for a scheme like what she's doing with Host Week Academy. I was thinking, okay, maybe that's something that they're going to elaborate on in the sequel. Because I'm willing to take having heard from other people how great the sequel is. I'm willing to take these people's.
I've gone through the sequel. That's the thing.
Right, and everybody that I've talked
Yeah.
to who said it's really great has gone through it or read the LP, like Cool Mike and a few other personal friends that I have, and I'm willing to take you guys' impressions on that, which is why I can forgive the whole like what they do with the tragedy in the first game, but without that context and in the moment, it just felt sort of egregious to me.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
It's a little more grandiose and a little less personal. It's kind of how I felt. Like, one part I did admire though is I love that when they defeat Junko and they pledge that they're gonna, no matter what, they're just gonna keep proceeding with their lives. They didn't need to tell you, like, in the narrative, it doesn't matter if the world's destroyed or if it was at this point we know because of the other games and whatnot that it was, but it doesn't matter if it was destroyed or if it was just everything's fine and it was a lie. The important thing is that they're going to keep going. They still have hope.
The ending is really, really beautiful and great.
The one thing I'll say about this game is I kind of think Makoto is a really boring protagonist.
that's what works about him. I think.
He is.
He's just your everyman, basically.
He's like fucking Cloud Strife. He's the protagonist and he's the least interesting person in his game. Well, except for movie, but God, I pronounce that guy like name like 7 different ways. But
he's not that interesting, but I think by the end I was endeared to him because of his drive and the fact that he was the ultimate hope of the group. I don't think that they really hit it off with him all the way ever, and I don't think they really landed. And for me that was glaring because when and Scrafty can probably, and actually Smed, you probably can too. For me, when I play an Ace Attorney game, I really enjoy being in the role of Phoenix Wright because I think Phoenix is a great character. I like to play him. I like his responses to things and his relationships with characters and how he reacts in trials and his opinions on things and his motivations. He's a compelling main character to me, which I feel like games, if they're not self-insert, I feel like games a lot of times have a hard time writing a lead that's compelling, and rather than just being like a fun everyman, like they have a really hard time getting like nailing down a really like good actual specific defined main character. And I feel like a game like this, like a visual novel where the bulk of the experience, 80% of it is you reading text and interacting with the cast and also reading lines from the main character. I feel like they really need to get the main protagonist right in the same way that a film needs to get it right or a TV show needs to get it right. You gotta kind of care about what's going on with the main person and their motivations and what they're saying and how they are. They should really kind of nail that. And by the end, I really like him simply because of the whole experience and him almost dying and what we went through. And he, like I said, he was the ultimate hope. So at the end, I like Makoto. I reflect on him. I think he was cool, but I still don't think they ever really hit it out of the park with him the way they really should have.
No, So when people are mentioning in the chat that the point of him is he's an average person, I don't think that's really an excuse. You can have an average person and still have an interesting character. My thing with Makoto is that it's like what Ron was saying. It just feels like there's something missing from him. I'm never invested in what he's saying. Some people might disagree with me, but in some ways I think that it would have almost been better if they had gone like the Gordon Freeman, this character is just an avatar for you type of character, because he just never is all that interesting. Like I said, he's like Cloud Strife. It's not that interesting. He's the least interesting character in his own game.
He's like this really weird. And that's the thing about Cloud, and like maybe like a problem with like Final Fantasy VII being as influential as it is that like a character like Cloud is it's like the middle of the road. It's like we want to have our cake and eat it too. We want to give you agency as a player and make you feel like you're really in it, but we also want to write a character who's like been through things specifically. So we end up doing both in a sort of a half-assed way that doesn't really feel good on in either aspect. And so this is what we get. You get Makoto, easily self-insert, but at the same time, his lines never really land. His motivations never really land. It's like at the end of the game, I appreciated Makoto. 5 minutes into the first case of Ace Attorney, I liked being Phoenix Wright. I already liked Phoenix Wright, and it went from there. And now 2 games in, I really like Phoenix Wright. Like and they commit to it there, where he's a specific character with his dialogue, and that's it. This is who he is. He's a specific guy. He's as much a character of the cast as Maya or Edgeworth or anybody else in the game. He's a written character. It's from your perspective, and they do take the player into consideration because obviously you have to make dialogue choices and present evidence and whatnot. But ultimately, like all those games are about Phoenix's journey as a character, and he's going to go on that journey whether or not you agree with it or not. It's more about him than it is you from a writing standpoint.
And you see, like, Phoenix was always the best part, like the best character in whatever game he was in, with the exception of Ace Attorney 3, in which case, like, Godot's the best character. But That's the problem that they had with Makoto and Dangan Ronpa, is that he doesn't really stand out amongst a cast of really interesting and unique characters, except for Fumi. So like it's almost like they got too ambitious with their other characters and they forgot to allocate enough time to make their main character stand out. And like I do appreciate they take the time to say, oh, this is like the most average Joe in the entire world, but at the same time, that's like, as you said before, Ron, it's not really an excuse in the long run, because it's like you can write a really interesting character who is an everyman without having to resort to like tropes about him being boring or average.
Yeah, exactly. He's the ultimate hope, everyone.
I just really think you have to commit one way or the other. Because when you hear people talk about their favorite characters in Persona 4 and in Persona 3, the main characters in those games, they're not voiced. So that's why they never come up in lists, really, because they're definitely you. They're not voiced, and it lets the other characters who do have voices and clear, defined motivations and backstories, it lets them shine. By giving Makoto a voice in this, they put him in the same sort of competition with the rest of the cast. And looking at these favorite characters, like talking to you guys and looking in the favorite character like lists on GAF and stuff, Makoto isn't really in anybody's top 3 or top 5. Like that kind of hurt, giving him a voice and kind of being middle of the road with it sort of like really hurt his standing and his effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
He's PK's number 1.
He's PK's. Oh, PK. But so I haven't heard from Keats in a while. Keats, what were your final thoughts on or what were your thoughts on the final chapter, or Makoto, or any of what we just talked about?
Well, Makoto, he always felt like he was just there to. I don't really know how to explain it.
He's like the link between the player and the game world.
Yeah, because he doesn't really figure anything out himself. He just kind of guides everyone else along.
Yeah.
Let's just try to get the conversation going is what he does. He just never felt like a character to me, really.
Yeah,
the only time is when he like found like the video of his family. That was the only time I was like, well, this dude got stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything else, he was just there.
God, people are gonna laugh, but for a brief moment, I thought Makoto, like they show Makoto's family at the end, and for a second I'm like, man, his dad kind of looks like the headmaster. Did anyone else? Am I alone in this?
I didn't think that, but when you were having those when he had those like flashes in his mind of like, oh, that's what I meant to do. I meant to stay here. I thought, oh my God, what if Makoto was like secretly the mastermind?
What if Makoto was secretly Genocide
What if
Jack?
somehow it's him?
Everyone thought that. I don't care who you are in the chat. Everyone thought at one point Makoto was the mastermind.
Oh yeah,
because especially at one point someone's clicking.
Oh, sorry about that.
Especially at the one point where I think there's several moments where he's like having like a recollection. It's like, I am here for a reason. I'm supposed to stay here, some bullshit like that. And I'm like,
they do that like twice, and it's creepy every time. I was like, what if he's the mastermind?
I honestly would be like, I would be pretty disappointed if he was the mastermind. That would have been bad.
That would have been a terrible plot development. Yeah.
I think the idea of him sort of like with those weird recollections sort of like makes you like throws off the player in chapter 5 with the like did I kill Mukuro or something like that, because like he just sort of seems so out of it like during the sequence where he has the fever, where you're sort of like what did I do, and then with the like I was supposed to stay here, it's like it really gets you wondering like what is up with Makoto really.
Yeah, especially when he's the ultimate lucky student. Like, from the outset that's not why he's there.
No, it's definitely like totally like a BS title. He's not there. It ultimately turns out to be that he was drawn by fate because he's the ultimate hope. It's a story of fate, you see, destiny. We were brought together, but it could have easily been like, oh, I'm not actually the ultimate lucky student. That's just a BS thing I made up because it's all a conspiracy. Because actually, I came up with this whole thing.
Yeah, but looking back on it, it's obviously not, my final thoughts. I'll let all of you guys go too, but it's definitely not a perfect game. Like I said, I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I really adored it. The highs were too high for any lows. Like my only really lows are Himifumi. I just think he's a shit character, and the game mechanically, we haven't even talked about mechanics at all. I really loved the trials. I thought they were fucking thrilling at times. They were just so much fun. Like at first, I wasn't a big fan of the rhythm game, but then I kind of get into it after a while.
by chapter 4, I really started to actively enjoy everything that you do in the trials.
Yeah, 'cause I think it was the second trials the first time that the rhythm game comes up, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then
Hangman's Gambit was way worse, I thought.
yeah, it's kind of like a crossword puzzle, except for
you're just thrown in and be like, hey, guess this word.
Yeah, basically.
Everything that wasn't just presenting a contradiction or picking the right item off a list or whatever, like all the Hangman's Gambit, the bullet time battle, all that stuff, even the comic thing to an extent, up until like the middle of the game, like chapter 4, I was kind of like not into. But I think that was the point for some reason in that chapter. I was like, I just really started actively enjoying all that stuff.
Yeah,
I really didn't like in chapter 2 with the Hangman's Gambit. You had the word you defined was schizo, which didn't make any sense because like Genocide Jack isn't a schizophrenic. It's like a dissociative personality disorder. Like I feel almost like kind of offended that they use schizophrenic for that. Like that's not what a schizophrenic is.
That's a bad taste in my mouth.
One of my friends who was actually into the franchise, who actually months ago, she had sent me the Let's Play of Dangan Ronpa 2 because this is one we thought it was never going to get localized. And I never got around to reading it. I'm glad I didn't. But I saw her lament that comment that Nisa put that in there.
That's like a common misconception about multiple personality disorder and schizophrenia. Like schizophrenia is you hear voices. Multiple personality disorders you hear. Like the fucking, remember the Jim Carrey movie, Me, Myself, and Irene? They call him a schizo the whole movie. It's not the same thing.
Well, in the
that's pretty. Oh boy.
They used disassociative in the Hangman's Gambit there, which is why I was so confused. Like I'm like, first of all, I was like, what word am I supposed to spell out? And then when I actually got it, I'm like, this just sort of like this leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Just that word in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do they? Okay, so without the perspective to know, I figured that Nisa, that they had to translate like a really small, like they were working with a character woman, had to translate a really small word in Japanese, and so they had to go with the best thing they could get. Do they actually use disassociative in the Japanese
Hangman's
version?
Gambit, they use disassociative. I'm 95% sure.
That's really egregious then.
Yeah, I thought that was really bad.
Yeah, wow, I had no clue.
I'm gonna check that real quick. I'll be 1 second. You guys keep talking. I'll check that.
To be honest, as much as I love Dangan Ronpa, there's a few moments that are exactly the most politically correct. I'm sure people can figure out what I'm talking about. But, anyways, so yeah, what was? Who wants to pour their heart out about this game?
I thought it was a freaking great game. I liked it a lot. It's like, I don't think it dethrones Ace Attorney 3 as my favorite visual novel, but it was really enjoyable for what it was. I went into it with pretty high expectations, and it actually surpassed my expectations, so that's a good thing. I really like the music, like that remix with the investigation theme that plays during the last 2 cases is like mind blowing. I was so excited to hear that music. Mm-hmm. And I thought the visual style. Yeah, the
really
guitar.
Like that.
That's like butt rock. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, but it does its purpose as well, though. I get too excited for the case and the investigation.
Scrafty, mind if I interject real quick about what I was mentioning?
I don't mind at all. Go ahead.
I was wrong. They use multiple personalities in the Chapter 2 Hangman's Gambit, which is because that's even longer. So that is really just sort of a
big fuck up on Nisa's part.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I loved it.
My bad.
Were you done, Scrafty?
Oh yeah, sorry. So yeah, I think it was really, really good experience. I actually think it's probably the scariest game I've played in a long time. Like I played Outlast, that didn't really do it for me. So yeah, this game was legitimately frightening when it wanted to be. It was legitimately funny when it wanted to be. It was legitimately heartbreaking when it wanted to be. So I think that it did really well for itself. Obviously there were some issues. Like the game got really like ridiculous and prosy sometimes. Like Makoto's pre-trial spiel always made me kind of chuckle at how cheesy it was.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a perfect game, and that's why I still think that Ace Attorney 3 is the leg up one. Because in my mind, that is a perfect visual novel that hits all the right notes and has the best writing. But for what Dangan Ronpa was, it was a great game. So I think that people say that Dangan Ronpa 2 is even better, and that's kind of mind blowing to me. Because I was like, how do you improve on this? How do you make this significantly better?
Really.
So
okay, I'm excited. I'm going to total blackout for this one. No trailers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, do not just avoid the internet for 9 months if you can.
Yeah, it's really bad. Like I said, I know. It was, like I said, it was just a little wiki search. I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah, I got myself spoiled on one of the bigger parts of 2, and while I had no context, it's still like, oh, like this is a thing. Oh, okay.
You guys want me to tell you something?
Sure.
I'm probably not supposed to tell you this. There was a review embargo for Dangan Ronpa where you weren't allowed to talk about anything post Chapter 1.
Yeah,
But,
no,
like,
they've
didn't the trailer
actually.
spoil?
Spike Chunsoft was really big about that when it came out in Japan. They didn't
That's-
want anyone going past Chapter 1 in any of the any gameplay videos or anything. So yeah, they wanted to get people to have a taste of it, but they didn't want anyone to go past that.
Because I understand why they did that, but that's like that embargo is in place now. For my review.
Like for
Like that,
English
like
reviews?
that's forever. Yes.
Oh wow.
It's like a permanent embargo. I don't know how
I'm
they
not a professional reviewer.
Neither am I. So,
Oh.
but yeah, it was. I think it's honestly one of those things that's kind of they can't really like. What are you gonna do? He's gonna take you to court because you said who fucking Kyoko's dad is. But anyways.
I think it's kind of preposterous because I didn't watch any trailers for this game in the lead up, except for that one video with all the first lines and like all the characters' first lines. But then I watched the second trailer that was released after I beat the game. That it spoils significant parts of chapters 4 and 5. So I'm really surprised they put an embargo like that down when they're gonna spoil parts of their own game so like flippantly.
Yeah. What about you, Keats? You've been so quiet.
I've been trying to talk, but
You just got to jump in, dude. I told you.
trying. But I really love the game. Like I love visual novels like this, and like when I finished it, I felt the same way I did after I finished Virtue's Last Reward, which I played back to back with 999.
That's a good game.
That's a hell of an experience, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But just the same feelings from this, and I can't believe we have to wait so long for 2.
I'm kind of bummed about that too. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my god.
It's a little long.
I'm surprised they announced it so early. I mean, I didn't expect them to announce that it would be out this year.
I think it's because of the leak with the voice actor.
Yeah, with the voice actor that totally fucked up.
I mean, overall, I didn't expect them to have it localized this year. I should say.
Because they had a press event for it, didn't they?
Yeah, it was the same day the press event happened. Or I think it was like right before the press event happened. The guy from one of the characters of DR2, the voice actor for him, like ended up leaking his role or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or it could have been like a day or two before or something. But yeah, like that's what happened.
It was like a couple of days before. And he was like, it was a couple of days before, and he was like, "Oh, Dangan Rompa's out. I play this guy," and then everybody was like, "But that's the guy in Dangan Ronpa too."
Yeah.
I know
So
that
he kind of
happened. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, he blew that. But it's worth noting though, GameStop and Amazon both have the sequel. They have it pegged for September 2nd, which is actually a Tuesday. And niche games like this, like Alice's games, months before Alice will say the public release date of a game, Amazon will have the release date. So that could well be the date, or pretty close in the ballpark. So I would say that game is probably almost certainly going to be out in September.
You know what I would say to that? Is it's still too far away.
That is too far away.
It is still too far away, but I will say I will accept it as a birthday present because my birthday is September, so I think that can work for me as far as it is.
So, yeah, good word though, Keats. It was quite a game. What about you, Ron? What do you think?
I thought it was really fantastic. I still haven't played a lot of games like this. I've only played like a couple, like the couple of the first 2 Ace Attorneys, and I still want to play 999, the Cobble Together iOS version, so then I can play VLR just so I can get that necessary plot stuff. And I am going to play Ace Attorney 3 at some point because I know I need to go through that. But I love narrative in games. I thought this was so fantastic, so well done. Crazy well written, really, really funny. I thought the art direction was great. I think the music, the soundtrack in this game is probably one of my favorites. It's just I just could not get enough of the music. I thought it was just so great. I really want to hear more of this guy's stuff. So I'm really happy that he's like at Tango working on their game, and like the soundtrack for the sequel. Obviously, get to play that. I went in with really lofty expectations also because it was a bit like I said on GAF. I compared it to when I first played Mass Effect 2 because I played Mass Effect 2 on PS3. So that was a whole calendar year after it had been on 360. So I spent a whole year hearing people say how Mass Effect 2 was just this great, thrilling, emotional experience, and then it came out, and it was somehow it managed to surpass that whole year's worth of expectations. And Danganronpa was the same way. It lived. I feel like it, for the most part, it lived up to the hype that people had for it. So people saying that the sequel is like so much better. I can't wait for that. I think this is a fantastic debut for a series. I want to note, it's completely eligible for GOTY's Game of the Year awards this year because this is the first official release in the States, so it's totally eligible for that, and I think that's great. I love the fact that at the end of the year, it's like somewhere in my top 5 I already know is going to be this game and more than likely the sequel. That blows my mind. I think it's fantastic that NISA is bringing these over. And as somebody who didn't really have faith in them when it started, because I'm not a big fan of their stuff, I think they did a pretty solid job. I think some of the translation is awkward. We just talked about the schizo thing. I don't think Hifumi ever lands comedically. I don't think that character works. I think they really screwed the pooch there. But the references they worked in, the game feels totally local to me. I still think it's written really well. I think the dub came together, and we all know, to start, I hate the dub. I know some of us like to note that, but to start, I was not impressed with the dub, but I went ahead and played with the dub, and I think everybody slots into their role really, really well. I think they did a great job. It's great.
I'm warming up to the dub because I played the first chapter and a half, but I still think the Japanese track's way better.
Don't get me started on the English voice acting.
No, you're not a fan?
Junko's English voice acting was just made me really depressed compared to the Japanese one. I'm not a fan of like you guys obviously to an extent know me that I'm Mr. like no anime, but Junko's Japanese voice acting is 1,000 times better than the English one by far.
She was so good.
In the one of the poses, she sounded just straight up bored. And it just really threw me off and just really brought me out of it. I was like, okay, if you're not into it, I'm not either.
The thing that I heard so consistently about as far as like the way the characters were cast in Japan is that and I think a lot of what's going on as far as like commentary and subversion of tropes and stuff is probably lost on us, because in Japan, all the characters are played by these really famous voice actors, and all the characters are crafted to sort of be like characters that those actors typically play, and then they mess with sort of the tropes of those actors' careers from there. At least this is what I've been told. So obviously we lose a lot of that because they can't do that with voice actors over here, because we don't treat our voice actors the way the Japanese treat Seiyu in that region. It's a different thing, a different relationship between the artist and the art for us. So I think we lose that, and that's unfortunate. And so I think that was really, when you've got big names in the games, I think there's no way they could have ever really lived up to what they do in Japan, because obviously the connections between those actors and those characters are so deeply ingrained, and they're big major stars over there. I don't think we could ever reach that, but for what they were able to achieve, especially considering the fact that for this project, most of these people are amateurs. We talked to Erin Fitzgerald to know she still is pretty like early in her career. Everybody else I'd straight up never heard of. The guy that plays Tagami, straight up post-GAF.
They should bring on Nolan North for Dangan Ronpa 2 then, and Troy Baker.
Well, see, and that's the thing. To start, that's how I felt. Like someone said in the thread, Celestia should have been played by Karen Strassman because she's French and she can do a French voice. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what they should have done because she's a good actress.
Bring back the Northies.
Bring back the Northeast. But ultimately, having gone through the whole thing, though, I really think everybody who they did cast really does an admirable job. And I'm sure it's not as good as the Japanese dub, but for what it is, I think they did the best they could do, and I think it's worth commending.
It's not a terrible.
I think at the very least.
Go ahead, Scrafty.
Sorry. At the very least, Brian B. Cox deserves. Yeah. Hey. What? Am I lagging you?
You're lagging.
No, I
bad.
I can hear you.
You can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. I think at the very least, Brian B. Cox deserves some praise for Monokuma, because that was a freaking hilarious performance.
Monokuma, I generally will straight up say I would not be opposed to Monokuma getting some sort of voice acting award here in the States for that performance. That was really effective for me. Like every other performance in the game, it gets better as it goes on. But there's a point where he clicks, and every time Monokuma is on screen with voice lines, he takes the stage. Yeah,
disgusting.
Considering who the Japanese that played Monokuma was, I mean, he did a great job in comparison.
Like the one that I always come back to, and I've come to the grips that I'll never like this. I don't like English Kyoko at all. I think she's awful. She's just like, I am reading a line off a script.
Yeah, maybe it's the voice direction or something, but a lot of it just felt like phoned in to me. Like I wasn't a huge fan of it, except for like a few characters.
Yeah, and I'm not a dub hater. It's a purely case by case basis.
Yeah, it's the same with me.
It's just like it. There are good elements. Like Aaron did a really good job with Genocide, but I still prefer the Japanese Genocide Jill.
Yeah.
But What about you, Keats? What are your final thoughts?
I like the dub a lot. I heard that one first. I didn't play it in Japanese, or I only heard the Japanese like yesterday when I watched a bit of the anime just to get a taste for it for this. But I love English Monokuma. I can't stand Japanese Monokuma.
I love Japanese Monokuma.
Japanese Monokuma
No,
Yeah, I don't want to come off as like a dub apologist or anything, but I feel like what I've and I still want to play it with the dub, but I feel like what I've heard, that was like a fight a fight that they never really had any hope of winning. You know what I mean? Like they were sort of going to fail from the outset because of how pumped up the dub is in Japanese. But I like what they did with this. I commend them for that, and especially to start when they put that video out with the voice samples. I was not impressed at all.
I was like absolutely terrified when I saw that. I'm like, this is really bad.
And in that moment, I was like, see, this is exactly why I didn't want Nisa to get it, because Atlas can voice cast, but they were never going to get this because they have their plate full. We were all, I still remember the weekend when this was announced at Anime Expo, and Axis and Nisa both had panels, and Axis announced some stuff that nobody thought they would get, and then Nisa announced Dangan Ronpa, and we were like, well, that's kind of a bittersweet localization victory, because it's coming over, it's just not the guys we wanted it from, because Axis knows how to cast voice, because I from what I've heard of BLR and 999, and having knowledge of the voice credits in those games, haha, insert Persona joke here, they know how to cast voice actors, and I think we would have been looking at a significantly different cast if it had been an Axis project.
So Keats, you I just wanted to ask, do you generally prefer dubs or subs, or is it case by case?
It's the case by case. That depends on the cast for me.
Yeah, like I'm the same way. Like obviously I wouldn't interview voice actors from Persona 3 and 4 and 2 all the time if I didn't like the dubs. Like I said, I think Japanese Teddy or Kuma is the worst thing ever.
I have a list of like all the characters and who they play in Persona.
Mm-hmm.
And you know your beloved Hifumi?
Mm-hmm.
He's Japanese Teddy.
Is he?
Yep.
Oh my god.
Man, this explains so much.
I could totally hear it too. Oh my god.
Yep. Oh. He's also Bugs Bunny in the Japanese dub of Space Jam.
Oh, I can't wait till they put the second one out with LeBron. But
no, that's fake. But
that was a joke.
I know. Better have been a joke, or this podcast was going to be over.
It was a joke.
It was a joke. Thankfully.
Yeah, but yeah, you can read your review if you want to know what I thought of it. So we should. Any final thoughts at all?
I want to give my final thoughts real quick.
Oh shit! I'm sorry.
It's okay. Everyone forgets me. I'm basically the naggy, just always out. But I mean, I liked it. The gameplay sort of was like I liked some of it. I didn't like some of it. As you guys know, I wasn't a fan of some of the localization because of just like minor goose from what I know from the LP, and I wasn't a huge fan of the voice acting. But I mean, overall, I think the story is fantastic. I wouldn't rank it as one of my favorite my top story, but it'd probably be in my top 3 of like just favorite game stories of all time, probably. It's a great game.
Yeah, it's
high praise.
Yeah, the plot usually in games are very rarely is the plot and the story intertwined so well as this game, and I think that's why it resonates with a lot of people. Like if this had come out last year, this would have been my game of the year for sure. I still can't even believe that the second one is just considered like so much better than the first one. Like I'm almost skeptical.
Actually, Levito, if you don't mind,
mm-hmm.
As someone who's gone through 2, I want to hear like everyone's sort of like thoughts, what they expect about 2, if you wouldn't mind that.
That's a really good idea.
What do you expect? What do you guys expect, having known from what you guys know about 1? What would you expect in 2?
I would have. For me, I would just like the little. I would like to, first of all, know. I hope every character subverts their tropes like entirely. Like that's something I noted in my review. Like Himifumi, we said it over and over. I would like maybe a little more explanation as to the whole apocalyptic thing. I kind of know what I'm about to say, but I want to know why Monokuma gets up again. But I really don't know what to think because I am skeptical that it's just like head and shoulders better. I hope it is because wow, if it is, God, that might be one of my favorite games ever.
Yeah, potentially. Man, I'm in the same boat. I think that game would have the potential to totally break its way into my top 10 of all time, which is like, to know that is like, what? That anytime that possibility is present, it's always exciting. But yeah, I want to know specifically what's up with the tragedy. I expect to hear about more of the origins and the inner workings of Monokuma, because that epilogue, Monokuma clearly there's more to him than we thought. He is definitely not linked to Junko. We know that much, at least not as far as his overall existence. He does not require her to function. So what will happen? But then there's the whole control room that was in the school. So was someone back in the control room and they started operating him again? All these questions swirl in my head. So I want to know that. The characters, I'm expecting them to be even more vibrant and play off each other much better. Maybe they'll bond together a little bit better than these ones did. I don't know, but it seems like I think that's what's really going to be the thing that really, I feel like that's what's going to be the thing that really like sets the sequel on fire, is like getting the cast across. Because for the most part, the cast in DR is really strong, but there are some low ends. There's Makoto, there's Hifumi, there's Hiro, who's pretty good if you look at him as a Shaggy, but other than that, I kind of felt like he was dead weight for most of the game. I'm expecting no loose ends in Dangan Ronpa 2. I think I want everybody to deliver and be a character that you want to interact with and want to have around, and when you lose them, you really feel it. And that's about it. Internet, if you're listening to this, Junko is still my waifu, my Junebug, my Cocoa Puffs, my kawaii waifu, married in Hawaii. So she's mine. So know that.
No, I'm dead.
I have to say something. One of the most random fucking references in that game. Yasuhiro bringing up Miss Cleo. Holy fuck!
It makes sense.
Wait. I was like, wait. Nisa, what are you doing with this? What's going on here?
You guys know who Miss Cleo is, right?
Yeah, it's the old telephone psychic.
Yeah, like I call her on with Cleo. Like I was like, did they just wow?
I seriously was like, what do you guys think you're pulling here? This is amazing.
Yeah, that was great. But yeah, anyways, so Keats, what are your hopes for 2, or what are you expecting? What are your thoughts?
I want to see what happens to the cast from 1 who survived. There are 2 characters I've seen in the art who could be Makoto. I don't know. They both kind of look like him, but one with short hair, one with white hair. I don't know what's going on with that.
Okay, I know who you're talking about.
Like, they look like him. I don't know if they are him or not. But I kind of want to see him, basically, because, protagonist. You want to see him again. And I just want to see all the other characters. Like, what I liked about this game was characters, so I want to see all the new ones, obviously.
Sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
And, I just want to know more about the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to play this horror shooter spinoff with Makoto's sister and Genocide Jill.
I'm so interested in seeing that.
I got to be honest. I watched some gameplay and I thought that looked horrible.
I really
wish... It looks horrible, but
I've been thinking to look back into that. That's Makoto's sister and Genocide Jill? Because I only saw that original trailer that they showed on the screen for that PS Vita Heaven event, and I haven't seen anything else from it.
I want Platinum to make that game because that would be the best game ever then. Platinum just making a Dangan Ronpa spin-off.
It looks great.
What was that, Keats? I couldn't hear you.
I went back to watch that trailer again now because I saw it originally. I thought, man, that looks like shit. But now in the context, it's going to be stupid and great.
Oh, once you know what happens in 2, the possibilities for that game opens up so much, I think.
Is that a Vita game?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. It will be.
And I think the trailer teased a 3rd game.
Yeah, it's at M3 too, so we're going to get a 3rd one.
A 3rd Dangan Ronpa? Really?
3rd Dangan Ronpa.
Wow, damn.
Yeah, man, it's not like Virtue's Last Reward. These games actually sell.
Oh, God. Too soon.
Do they? I guess we'll find out.
Oh.
Keep your pre-orders, though.
I'm depressed now.
But yeah, there was... Yeah. Scrafty, what are your hopes, thoughts, aspirations for DR?
Well, I know there's a character called Gundam, so I want to know what's up with that. And I also want to know...
Megatron Smith.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, you lagged out horribly there.
I know there's a character called Gundam, so I want to know what's up with that. I don't know anything about him. I just know his name. And I also want to see if the characters do return. Like I know that they only dead alive, so there's a chance that they could return. If they do return, I want to see what happens to them. Like I want to know if Makoto grows, like it becomes like a John Connor type figure, or if he's just kind of like fades into obscurity. And I want to know if if he stays a prick, or if he becomes like a super jumbo prick, or if he becomes less of a prick. And I also want to know if Hero manages to survive 3 seconds out in the real world or not. So
I think Hero is so dumb that he could survive anything.
Yeah.
He's one of those.
If he made it to the end of Dangan Ronpa, he can survive anything.
I actually like him. He made me laugh. Like I said, that Miss Cleo thing was
he's one of my favorites.
I was just like, what? I cannot believe that. Like, I'm sure that wasn't in the Japanese version, but that would blow my mind if it was, because not many people remember Miss Cleo. But
I hope that Hinata is better than Makoto as a main character.
Yeah, that's an easy thing. So, one thing I wanted to ask, last thing though, I wanted to ask Smed, since you had played or you had read the Let's Play, or did you read the Let's Play, or did you play the game?
For which one? For 2?
The first game.
Oh, I read the Let's Play for 1, yeah.
So, was there, besides some of the wonky translations, was there any way that the Vita port disappointed you, or?
No, I mean, not at all. I mean, I was able to play it. I really enjoyed that. I think overall it was definitely a solid port, and like I said, my only complaints were with some of the localization and some of the voice acting for English.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, overall, it's a great game. I can't really complain about the quality of it in most cases.
So with that, I think we should wrap it up because it's almost 3 hours. So I really hope everyone, including everyone who stayed with us in the chat, we had about 17 to 20 viewers the whole time. Yeah. That was pretty good. That's not bad considering we put it together in 2 days. But and it's everyone listening or in the chat has probably beaten the game. But I hope you enjoyed our off-topic Dangan Ronpa cast, our spoiler cast. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks for
inviting me. Awesome times. It was awesome having you on. You really contributed a lot.
Yeah. So with that, Mr. Scrafty, where can everyone find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at ScraftyDevil. Please do. I'm probably going to lose like 60 followers because of my opinions on Mundo. And other than that, I have a few projects coming up. You'll hear about those on Twitter, so that's about it for me.
All right. Mr. Keats, what about you?
I am on Twitter at twitter.com/CJKeats, Keats.
Okay, fair enough. And Mr. Inorigo?
You can find me pontificating as usual on Twitter at TailFun. I'm gonna say watch out for Scrafty. He's a menace. You people don't know. You're playing with fire. Be careful. No, he's a gentleman and a scholar. I love him. Follow him. He's great.
And Smed, I really, really liked talking with you. You should come on more often.
I would love to. Yeah, definitely. This was a lot of fun. Do you mind if I pimp out myself real quick?
That's what I was about to say.
Oh, thank you. Oh, so I am on Twitter at Smedwicks, and I also run a small-time video game blog. Do you mind if I pimp that out real quick?
Go for it.
0secondcooldown.blogspot.com. I just do a lot of random streams, reviews. It's really small scale because I don't get any review copies or anything. But yeah, I post a lot of random nonsense there. So if you like what you heard of me, check that out.
Awesome. For sure, I'll do that. But as always, you can follow me at Levito on Twitter. That's at LEVIT0. Since I brought up my review, I should mention I write for a website called Rely on Horror, and I put up a review for Dangan Ronpa up there, and I really loved it. And you can check out the whole thing on RelyOnHorror.com. And besides that, you can follow the podcast itself at S.LinkFM on Twitter. And we have the next episode is going to be with the Persona communities, the gaming industries, the North American game industry's hero, Pepsi Man. She's going to come on and talk about all translation stories and show us up. She drops the best knowledge bombs in our community by far. So look forward to that. With all that, I think we've all said our piece. So everyone say bye.
Thanks for having me. And this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this.
For sure. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Peace.
See ya later.
See you later, you dumb butts.
All right, we're done.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, I'm cutting the stream then. Later, stream.
Bye, stream.
That was cool.